Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show. Happy to have you with us on ESPN 792.1 FM. Fun show lined up for you today. Lauren Beck, World Cup Insider, Soccer Insider, World Cup Talk brought to you by Beer Bar. Going to be happening in about half an hour as we are on the very precipice, the world stage, the largest sporting event on the planet is happening in North America. And, of course, a bunch of U.S. host cities are helping to participate in this. So the World Cup begins this week, and we will have a brief and glorious glimpse at the fanaticism of the rest of the planet when it comes to soccer. The hope, of course, is that Team USA, the U.S. men's national team, accounts well for themselves. And it seems like the expectation is to make it to the elimination rounds, make it to the group stage, or make it through the group stage and get into some real elimination games. I don't know how realistic any expectation is beyond that. We'll start talking on a daily basis with World Cup insiders here on the Sean O'Connell Show to help get a better sense of those things. Lauren Beck will be today. We've got Jeff Schwartz jumping back on. Jeff is he's going to be an interesting person to talk to about all this Brendan Sorsby stuff for multiple reasons. Obviously, you know, he played football at the highest level, University of Oregon, and then he was, a decade in the NFL. But also he is very much a gambling, a sports betting, proponent. He is a betting insider. He's somebody that has, for many years, talked about the pros and cons of allowing the ubiquitous nature of sports betting on college campuses, in broadcasts relating to college sports, etc. That whole thing is heating up now as you're getting more people, Marcelo and Thamel and all these guys that report on college sports they're getting their hashtag sources, letting them know what happened on the athletic director's call yesterday, where I read you the Brett Yormark statement, and it was a big old nothing burger. It was like, yeah, we don't really know what to do. The insiders, everybody reporting what we knew would be the case, that of the 16 Big 12 teams, 15 athletic directors did not want Brendan Sorsby to be allowed to play this season and want something to be done at the conference level. I fully understand that mentality, and I have now, because I've gone through all the stages of grief, anger, resolution, denial, etc., I've finally just gotten to the point where, I finished the show yesterday. Let them die on their own hill. Let them have what they want. And when Cody Campbell is writing his $5 million worth of checks to Brendan Sorsby, and Texas Tech is an 8-4 team that has had a million personal foul penalties because other teams won't shut up about it, because there's fights that are happening, because cheap shots are going on, all that kind of thing, then college football, the Big 12, and most especially Texas Tech is going to realize that this is kind of the culmination of your grand efforts to make everything incredibly permissive. And you're getting the hot take machines coming through. Craig Carton, who is a very famous radio broadcaster and a guy who's had his own issues with sports betting and with addiction and with all that stuff. He is now becoming the number one proponent of Brendan Sorsby. Everyone who is, and the Texas Tech mental gymnastics are absolutely banana land. It is hilarious to watch every Texas Tech account defending this. And by the way, I need to restate, I want him to be allowed to play now. I want them to get their way. I want them to have what they deserve, because I think what you're going to deserve, I think the result of this is actually going to be a giant mess. So if that's what you've decided, great. But it really goes to show that if you've got an opinion on something, you will cling to any tidbit of information, or not even information, just any tidbit of opinion or whatever, to try to justify that opinion. And there are so many people wearing Texas Tech red and black who are pretending that this is really about a young man acknowledging that he had a problem and putting out a cry for help to get himself into an addiction rehab facility. There are people who believe that narrative, like to the core of their being. We should go do a man on the street thing in Lubbock, Texas. Just walk up to random Texas Tech fans and be like, how do you think Brendan Sorsby's gambling problem came to light? And I would bet 90% of them would be like, he made a phone call saying that he needed help. He's getting help. That's not what happened.
He obviously got caught. Yeah.
A year before any of this happened, he got caught. He got red flagged, and then he got flagged again, and then he got flagged again, and then it was going to be released in a nationally published article. And so obviously someone did him and his agent and his team a solid and said, hey, just so you know, this is coming out tomorrow if you want to get ahead of it. And then they were just like, oh, yeah, we'll get ahead of it. So we'll talk that with Jeff Schwartz. I'll try not to spend too much time on it today because it's becoming just annoying and frustrating. Also, we'll go between the pipes with Adrian Denny. Carolina tied it up 2-2 last night against Las Vegas. Another really interesting, really good game in that Stanley Cup final series.
Another game where the goaltenders had a hard time stopping the puck.
Well, and another game where Vegas in the second period, like if you could slow Vegas down in the second period, you might have a chance to win.
Yeah.
But the second period is just their thing right now.
It's like what we always hear recently about the great NBA teams in the third quarter. The Golden State Warriors recent dynasty, they dominated the third quarter, and there was a blowout by the time the fourth quarter started, and there was no chance for opponents to win because they were so good in that third quarter. It seems like that's what Vegas does in the second period in hockey games, and maybe that's the equivalent in the hockey world because there's not 4 periods. That middle period is the one that if you're going to separate yourself, that's where you got to be dominant. But
well, credit to Carolina.
Yeah, credit to Carolina
for bouncing back and getting things done in the third. So 5-3 was the final. In that one, that series is tied up at 2 apiece, and so, of course, it becomes a 3-game series. Game 4 of the NBA Finals tonight at Madison Square Garden. And Rich Eisen, if you're just listening to the Rich Eisen show, they had a hilarious little aside about the behavior, the antics of people on Celebrity Row. They were getting mad at DJ Khaled for having his phone. He'd been on his phone for the entire game. And,
DJ Khaled.
877-353-0700 at Real OC Sports if you want to weigh in. The greatest sort of protocol violation, the thing that bothers you most when you see it from other sports fans, the etiquette that you just cannot stand somebody violating when you are at a live sporting event. 877-353-0700. Front row ticket at Madison Square Garden NBA Finals, being on your phone, that's pretty bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty darn bad. But it doesn't, necessarily affect anyone else adversely. So, I don't know. That's probably what I would make fun of somebody for, but I wouldn't, confront them about. I wouldn't go up to them and just be like, why are you wasting your own $500,000 on this ticket? There was, by the way, a really interesting social media video put out there about guys – or put up by a guy who was just going up to people outside of Madison Square Garden at Game 3 and asking them how much they paid for their tickets. And the answers were wild. He would say, how much did you pay for your tickets? And they'd be like, $8,000, $10,000, $50,000, $500,000. And then he would be like, okay, what do you do for a living? And they would either say, one guy, obnoxiously, Google me. Take a picture and Google me. And it was like, he had paid $10,000 for his tickets, so he's like, Google me. He's like, dude, there are people here that paid 10 times that. You are not the most impressive guy in the building. Anyway, there was one that was hilarious, and it was just like, you could not have set up a more New York thing. He asked this guy who's there, it's like a group of 4. It's like 2 dads and 2 teenagers or something, right? It's like, what? He's like, how much did you pay for your tickets? And it was in the hundreds of thousands. I don't remember. $200,000 maybe per ticket. And he goes, what do you do for a living? And then this guy the camera pans to this like hyper muscled, like Jersey Shore Guido looking 50-something-year-old dad with the thickest accent, and he's like, we do the garbage pickup for all of New York. And it's like, oh, okay, so you're in the mob. Sweet. It was like the most New York thing ever. But
we do the garbage pickup. I love that.
It was awesome to see. It is awesome. It is awesome to see, like, and we're the opposite end of the spectrum. We are a small market team with the Utah Jazz. We're still a small market team with the Utah Mammoth. We're gonna be a small market team when Major League Baseball officially ends up in Salt Lake City. And I love that. There's a charm to being the Green Bay Packers. There's a charm to even being like the Milwaukee Bucks, right? It's really hard to replicate what you see when it's New York Knicks NBA Finals basketball. And you don't have to love it. You don't have to worship it. You don't have to want it every single year. But the spectacle of it is, as a neutral sports fan, as someone who just gets to watch it on TV, really is fascinating. And it's really, I think, informative on American sports culture in a time where American sports culture is going to be brought into focus because the World Cup is here.
Which, by the way, New York City has got to be, it's always crawling with people, but can you imagine the amount of people that are there with the Knicks being in the finals and World Cup starting this week and those games happening in New Jersey, just outside the city, a lot of people staying in the city. Like, I can't imagine being in New York City right now with that many people.
I can't imagine trying to get a hotel or a rental car. I guess in New York, you don't need a rental car because the public transportation and the subway is good. You're seeing the concerns of, what comes with being the epicenter of everything right now. The other night, obviously, the president was in the building. It caused logistical issues for people trying to get into Madison Square Garden.
Sleeping, is that one of those with the president falling asleep during the game after all this, the amount of extra time that fans had to go through security, leaving early? Is that one of those
that is a
violations we're talking about?
Yes.
Faux pas.
If people falling asleep in their live seat is the thing that irks you most, 877-353-0700. That might be a valid one. However, remove your political leanings from this.
Absolutely.
The thing when like an 80-year-old president of the United States dozing off is probably the most predictable thing ever.
Yeah.
You're the president of the United States. The schedule is probably absolutely insane and crazy. And I mean, there's been dozens and dozens of videos of what looks like little impromptu naps happening with both this president and the last president. So
yes.
I think that's a function of being 80 years old. Like, if nothing else, and I don't think this is overly political, you know how there's an age restriction for eligibility for the president on the young end?
Yeah.
I think that maybe 75 should probably be the top end of that.
Should be an age cap as well. Yeah, it's like a salary cap floor and a salary cap.
I think that might be a good thing to do with the most important and powerful office in the land. I think that perhaps the last two presidencies have been good evidence to that regard, but we're not going to get political here. San Antonio, New York, that obviously the San Antonio Spurs clawed one back in game one. If they're able to equalize the series in game 4 here, if they go back to San Antonio 2-2, the same way we're seeing with the Stanley Cup final, the dynamic of this Knicks run suddenly changes because you've got a fan base that certainly has its diehards that never left, that never jumped off the bandwagon. But then you've got kind of, especially right now, you've got a bunch of people that are just now believing in the New York Knicks. And even some of those diehards are maybe just now believing in the New York Knicks again.
They went off the wagon, they're back on.
It can become such a shaky thing when obviously they had a beautiful 3 months, effectively, almost 2 months plus, of where they were just winning and dominating. And now, if San Antonio tonight can win again, regardless of what the score is, and you know this game is going to be physical, and you know there's going to be some chippiness, there's been some chirping, some threats back and forth, and I would not have it any other way. That's going to really upset the dynamic of this entire spectacle, this entire oh, man, New York, there's nothing like it. The league is better off when New York City and the New York Knicks are this dominant. If they're not dominant, if we're talking about San Antonio potentially closing out an NBA Finals victory at Madison Square Garden at some point, now all of this pageantry and spectacle becomes, oh, crap, that's a riot now. Because already there's violence outside of the Garden after one game.
One loss. Yeah, and which is just terrible. Dan Patrick touched on it, and we might touch on ourselves later, or we do it right here. But he said he's scared for the city whether the Knicks win or lose this series.
Well, look, one thing that New York does better than I think most places, and can do better than most places, is anticipate the need for law enforcement intervention, right? They've got these massive, massive events every single year. The Times Square New Year's Eve thing is an absolute zoo. It is unfathomable how many people cram themselves in, the logistical nightmare of that. I've been in New York City in the last, I guess it would have been the last 9 years since the whole PFL thing began. I've spent New Year's Eve in New York City, in Manhattan, in New York City now 5 times. Never at Times Square, because we're doing our event we were doing our event at Madison Square Garden, but it's very close, right? And you can walk over there and you can see where hey, if you go past this gate, you are in there until the ball is done dropping, and then you're going to have to try to figure out how to exit. This is where the people are wearing adult diapers to go in here, because they know that once you're in, you can't get out. If Salt Lake City had to do something that way, we just wouldn't be able to pull it off. We are not prepared. We don't have that level of law enforcement infrastructure, et cetera. They've got it for the Macy's Day Parade, the Thanksgiving Day Parade. They've got it for New Year's Eve. They've got it for all this different stuff. So I think New York better than most places, and I don't think New York is better than most places in almost any other regard. I am not a New York City fan. I don't enjoy New York City the way that a lot of you who like to visit it probably do. But one thing you got to respect about that place is when it comes to needing law enforcement, I don't know how many officers they have, but it's like Batman. They can throw out rank after rank after rank, where it's 5 officers deep marching in Gettysburg battle formation. You're just oh my gosh, where are all these cops coming from? So you'll get that most likely. James and I were talking about this off air also. The surveillance state of Madison Square Garden and Jimmy Dolan's sort of weird, petty obsession with keeping his enemies out of his properties does, I think, change the dynamic in how fans will be acting or will be reacting to whatever happens in this series. The rioting, if you're going to riot, you might have to do it a little bit further away from the Garden than you normally would, because the surveillance teams, the cameras, the facial recognition software, it's going to be used selectively, as it always is, but it could be used to snag some Knicks fans that they decide are the instigators or are the people that are the problem.
You would hope. I'm not a fan of the facial recognition stuff, and James Dolan is not the only one who does it, by the way. It's a lot of companies that have that now, a lot more than you would think. Pablo Torre Finds Out had a great episode on that, by the way, if you wanted to do a deeper dive with that on YouTube. But I'm not a fan of that stuff, but it's in those instances where it's you would hope that Jim Dolan and the Knicks would allow law enforcement to utilize that stuff in a situation like that.
Which, by the way, is exactly why he won't.
Yeah, right.
last thing, more important to this actual series, and something that is kind of in keeping with the theme of the shows this week, that as they're going to go. We have seen every angle. We have seen the full breakdown, the Zapruder film on Victor Wembanyama, what very obviously should have been a flagrant foul against Jalen Brunson. Number one star of the San Antonio Spurs and the number one emerging star in the league itself, top 5 player in the league already at 22 years of age, and clearly the heir apparent to that face of the league distinction that belongs de facto or otherwise to somebody in the league every single year. And for many, many years, even though LeBron is not the best version of himself anymore, for many, many years, it has been LeBron James. And even like no one in the world can make a case for me that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the face of the NBA more than LeBron James has been. Or
even though he's a better player than LeBron right now.
Yeah, he's a better player than LeBron. So
about more than that.
But so is Luka. So is
Jokic is probably still the best player in the world. He's not the face of the NBA.
He'll never be the face of the NBA because he will never embrace that the way. Like Victor Wembanyama, if he's not yet, winning this championship that'll accelerate it. Adam Silver and company in their dark rooms behind the scenes will be, okay, he's our new face of the NBA. They're already planning on that happening at some point if he wins this championship. But he's getting the special treatment because of it. And we've seen it. This is now the second time in playoff basketball, not just regular season basketball. This is the second time in playoff basketball that Victor Wembanyama is being given on the best. The big stars always get the benefit of the doubt on the calls when it comes to like drawing contact, right? It was the big complaint we had about the way Oklahoma City was doing things and the way SGA was doing things. Victor Wembanyama, it's not always that you see the Michael Jordan being the dirty player and not having the call go against him, right? Karl Malone was not punished as harshly as he probably could have been many times in his career because of his status in the league. Michael Jordan wasn't punished as much as he could have been because of his status in the league. Guys like Draymond Green go exactly in the lane that they're supposed to be in. You're an accessory piece to a great dynastic team, but your behavior is problematic. We're going to punish it. Victor Wembanyama,
although he gets an insane leash too. The amount of non-technicals he gets after berating officials after every play, but we digress.
Victor Wembanyama now twice on a physicality front has been the aggressor. And had it not be as consequential, had it not be as heavily punished as it would have been were it somebody else. And I am not naive enough to think that superstar players don't get superstar treatment in the NBA. It is something, though, that if we're talking about the New York Knicks and the San Antonio Spurs playing more games tonight, and I'm going to assume at least one more game at the Garden, that is going to be problematic. That is already becoming something that is going to – problematic is too strong a word. It is going to be adding a level of intrigue here because this New York Knicks team is not going to play by the NBA sort of company line and take it easy on Victor Wembanyama. There's already guys that are just like, yeah, he got away with one there. He's not going to get away with one again. They're going to defend Jalen Brunson, even if it means taking out Victor Wembanyama. And I say taking out, and you know what I mean in the basketball context, right?
Yeah,
they're not going to try to injure the alien.
No.
They're not going to try to injure him. But if you're going to
set off an intergalactic event, you couldn't do that.
If you're going to, the Monstars would come down. If you're going to hard foul our number one player, our team MVP, our guy, our superstar. If you're going to cheap shot him, you're going to get cheap shotted. And I cannot tell you how much I love this in the modern NBA because, as I've said many times before, this element was not wholly absent, but was so watered down. Like even with what I would consider some really great eras of NBA basketball, some really as much as we like to make fun of it, LeBron and D Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami, that was fun to watch, man. That was pretty cool. But those teams were like trying to be the popular kids in school. Those were everybody's best friends. Aside from Draymond, the Warriors dynasty was something that it was just like, a beautiful basketball, incredible theater with the long-distance shots and pulling up from half court and Klay Thompson scoring 39 points a quarter and all that good stuff. But even in those, like, glory days for the Golden State Warriors, aside from Draymond just being a punk, you didn't get, like, a lot. Well, I was going to say you didn't get a lot of punches thrown. You did get punches thrown, but it was only in Warriors practice.
That was insane. That's still an insane story.
It's still an insane story, right? But this, and I'm not advocating for violence on an NBA floor, but I'm advocating for, like, the tension that makes us think it might happen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm advocating for that, walking that, like, very thin line, and Victor Wembanyama and the officials by extension are letting that escalate and letting that happen in this series. That we are getting a restoration or a slight return of 90s basketball in these NBA finals.
With the Knicks, who were the most physical team of the 90s, which is they're not doing that to that level, but it is interesting that it's the same franchise that were the enforcers and the goons of the league.
I need it all back.
Then.
I need to bring it all back. Okay.
Yeah.
The Minnesota Timberwolves just announced the new uniforms that are like a return to their 90s, late 80s, and early 90s colorways. Okay. They're bringing that back. I want NBA Jam in the arcades again.
Let's go.
All right. That actually, a resurgence of NBA Jam would be sick right now.
Would be incredible
because of all the duos you could have.
Yes. Also the NBA on NBC video game that was their version of NBA Jam, also a fun 2-on-2 game from late 90s.
I'm not even aware of that.
The Showtime NBA on NBC, it was always fun. I only ever saw it in arcades, but it was a favorite of mine.
While we were talking, I looked up what hotel rooms in New York City are looking like right now because of the preponderance of activity going on, as you mentioned, with the World Cup being there nearby and, of course, the NBA Finals being here. I don't know why I'm so obsessed with get-in prices, but here we are. You're about $1,000 plus per night
at a hotel
for a hotel in New York City. So you got to pay
the cheapest hotel. Probably, right?
Yeah. It looks like a pretty nice place.
I mean, there's still going to be pretty nice, but the most affordable one is about $1,000 a night.
Yeah, we're looking at after fees about $1,000 a night, and obviously it goes way, way, way up from there. So
yeah,
pretty cool that people can pull this off. But again, it's something we've talked about on the show. I'm not going to belabor the point. You're getting to a level now where you're almost going to have rent-controlled tickets for these games. And I know that Jimmy Dolan has his foundation where they're like, yeah, we're going to bring in 1,000 underprivileged kids to the Garden for an NBA Finals game, but those families aren't attending. They're getting those tickets and they're listing them on eBay.
Probably, unless there's some way they control it where you can only go to the game with this ticket.
By the way, that would be terrible if they did that. They were just like, I know you could get $20,000 out of this ticket, but you have to attend. And I know you have school. Well, no, you don't have school tomorrow. Never mind.
One note on the NBA Finals here: if the Spurs were to win tonight, it would be the first time in NBA history that the road team has won the first 4 games of the NBA Finals. I mentioned yesterday there was only one other time when the first 3 games have been won by the road team. That was the 93 series, the Bulls beating Charles Barkley and the Suns. Only one other series that I know of that had that the home team had the worst record in a series besides that 93 series, and this one is looking like it's going to be something similar. That was the 2019 Raptors beating the Warriors. Now, Raptors won game 1 at home, so that's why that's different. But that was the only home win of the entire series. The home teams went 1-5 in both that series in 2019 and in the 1993 series, Bulls versus Suns. It feels like this one's going this way, especially if the Spurs even up the series and make history as the road team being the first series the road team wins the first 4 games.
That would actually be really interesting. I would have thought it had happened at some point in the past, but for the fact that we could see history made tonight, it's hard to make history in modern sports. It's hard to be the first to do something unless you're getting really, really Guinness Book of World Records obscure, right?
And this is kind of obscure, but also
but not that obscure. It's
not
like
crazy.
Like it's a commentary on home court advantage, which is far from being obscure. It's like something that teams play for.
Yeah, it's just nuts that if the Spurs were to win tonight, that the road teams are able to overcome the home atmospheres that typically accompany an NBA Finals game. I know there were tons of Knicks fans in San Antonio that weakened the Spurs' home court advantage in the first 2 games. That was not the case a couple nights ago at the Garden in Game 3. So would be a very impressive thing for the Spurs. I do not anticipate, if the Spurs are able to even up this series, I do not anticipate that the home team losing games for the last 3 games of the series the way that they would do it for these first 4. It'll be very fascinating to see.
All right, got to take a break here. Lauren Beck's going to join us next. World Cup Conversations brought to you by our friends over at Beer Bar. We're a day away, people. The World Cup starts in North America tomorrow. Let's get into it on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, Czechia, both games played tomorrow. One in Mexico City, one in Guadalajara, Mexico. The beginning of the 2026 World Cup, hosted, of course, in North America. The first American game, the first game hosted on American soil, will be Friday. USA, Paraguay at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, California. We'll be watching closely. We'll be talking about it every single day here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Lauren Beck, RSL Insider, Soccer Insider, World Cup Insider, brought to you by Beer Bar, joins us. Lauren, welcome. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing all right. How much would you say the anticipation in your own heart, mind, body is building for this World Cup to start?
Oh, I'm always a big fan of the World Cup. International football isn't something I'm regularly very into, but when it comes to some American pride and the World Cup and the major tournaments, you've got to pay attention. All eyes on us. I'm stoked.
So I know I asked you about this the last time we had a conversation. I've been asking all of our soccer insiders about this. You know, the ceiling for this USA team, the ceiling for Pulisic and company, when we're actually trying to be realistic about it, and you're seeing like this laundry list of elite players from all these different countries coming in to represent their home nations, and there's not the megastar talent on this U.S. men's national team roster. How problematic is that when we get into, at least into the knockout rounds? What's the ceiling?
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I think you can say it's a successful tournament for the U.S. if they make it to the round of 32, if they make it to the round of 16, and that's probably about as far as you would expect them to go. It's unfortunate that kind of feels like the ceiling for the United States, but we just haven't seen consistent performances from this team, and the star players have kind of struggled to find their footing for club and country in recent games. So yeah, I think round of 16 is a pretty solid tournament for the United States in this World Cup, and that's not, hosts don't typically win. That is not a trend in the World Cup. The host nations do not win the World Cup. So it's just kind of one of those things. And so that's certainly not an expectation for this U.S. squad. I think if you can get to the round of 16 here, that's pretty solid for the United States in this tournament.
Okay, that seems to be kind of a consensus, but no matter what happens, whenever the Team USA exit is, no matter what happens in the pool play with losses or wins or accumulation of points, etc., from a local perspective, I think there are going to be a lot of folks that are going to say, well, what might this team have been, or what would have happened in this particular scenario? How much better could it have been to have Diego Luna on this roster? And we have not had a conversation since he was omitted from the U.S. men's national team roster for this World Cup. And, he's going to have his day. He's going to be 4 years from now. He's going to be on the roster, I would imagine. But a bummer for RSL fans. I can't imagine what kind of a bummer it is for him. How much are we going to be second-guessing that when we get to some of these junctures in the tournament?
Yeah, and that's kind of always been a conversation we have after World Cups, it seems, with RSL players, with Kyle Beckerman, Nick Raimondo, and their final matches for the U.S. in the World Cup. And I think that's a fair conversation to bring up, because Diego Luna has been so fun for Real Salt Lake this season, so important to the squad. And, he's not the only one that was left out that was raising eyebrows for this U.S. men's national team. But the way that they've built this squad, they want those kind of swing players, and they've included a lot of center backs to fit that formation and that three center back formation that they're wanting to play out of. So I think it really could be a questionable decision, especially with the expanded roster. I mean, I think everybody thought he was a shoo-in for this World Cup squad, and the shock that we all felt when he wasn't included, if they don't perform well, especially offensively, if they're not able to find some creativity and kind of that fight that Diego brings to the squad and to the field, yeah, I think that's a fair question to bring up, but it's always going to be hindsight 2020.
Do you think we see some of that sting in his play when we get back from the international break, when RSL is back on the pitch? Do you think we see evidence of his anger over being omitted?
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. It was something we saw with the Olympics as well when he didn't make the Olympic squad. So for sure, coming back at the end of July, if he, I can't remember if we have All-Star results yet. I'm not sure, but we'll have the All-Star game and then back to Major League Soccer play, and then they'll have the Leagues Cup tournament against the Liga MX Team. So I'm sure Diego's going to come out firing and showing this U.S. men's national team what they missed out on.
All right, back to this U.S. men's national team. From a player perspective, who's the most pressure on? Is it the obvious of it's the guys who are in the credit card ads taking advantage of the popularity of this event, or is there somebody on this roster who you think is really going to have to prove that they belong there?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Christian Pulisic probably is feeling the most pressure of this U.S. men's national team, just because of the season that he's had with his club in 2026, not scoring any goals, and the way that he's kind of acted toward the U.S. men's national team in recent games and friendlies. I think it's totally fair to say the pressure is on him in this tournament to perform, and that's also because he has performed in these tournaments for the U.S. men's national team, despite whatever form he's been in coming into the tournament for the national team or for his club team. He usually finds a way to perform in these major tournaments for the U.S., but you have a lot of other big faces that are emerging for this roster, and Robinson and Dest and Bologun. So I think it's a bit spread out as far as the pressure goes, but the focus will certainly be on the captain, Christian Pulisic.
Lauren Beck is our guest here, brought to you by Beer Bar, talking World Cup soccer. First games played tomorrow. First USA game will be on Friday at SoFi Stadium down in Inglewood, California, as they take on Paraguay. I have not looked today at what the ticket prices are for that. I'll give you that update after we talk with Lauren here. In goal, this used to be a place where, even though we were acutely aware of Team USA's kind of level on the global stage, there was always like hey, but we got Tim Howard in goal. Hey, we got whoever, like our goalies, our goaltenders are good. Our goalkeepers, that's something that we can compete on the international stage. And that position is not nearly the strength that it once was. How big a concern is that for this U.S. men's national team ahead of the World Cup?
Yeah, it's interesting because it might be, I believe, the first time that there's potential for a goalkeeper who primarily plays in Major League Soccer to be the starter for the U.S. men's national team. But it is still pretty up in the air. And as you said, you've had huge names in goal for the U.S. men's national team and who've come up absolutely huge. Tim Howard against Portugal, against Belgium, absolutely massive in his final tournaments. And it's again kind of one of those that we had Nick Rimando that didn't really get looks in the World Cup, but big names in that position. That's a fair point, OC. But when it comes to goalkeepers, it's my favorite thing is that Nick Rimando always used to do is if he's making a save, he's angry at his defenders because he shouldn't have to do his job, right? So I think obviously it's so important to have a great goalkeeper, but that back line really is where you need to have strength and chemistry, and hopefully that Tim Ream, Chris Richards, Alex Freeman, whoever's playing back there, Robinson, they've got that figured out, especially in that group stage. And whoever's in goalkeeper, whether it's Matt Freese or Matt Turner, they'll hopefully step up into this huge tournament again. The spotlight absolutely on the U.S. with everything that's been going on with this World Cup and hosting it. So, it's a massive position for the U.S. men's national team, and as you said, some big legends have come up in that position.
Do you have a pick? Do you have a team that you think is going to win this World Cup?
Oh boy, I don't know if I have a pick necessarily. It's interesting. I've been doing a lot of reading about the trends that you see in the World Cup, right? And as I mentioned earlier, not typically a winner. The holding nation, the reigning champions, typically don't win either. If you're the favorite going into the tournament, not good for you either. You know, there's so many interesting trends when it comes to the World Cup. European teams tend not to win outside of Europe. I think Spain in 2010 is the lone exception to that. So I don't know if I have a favorite necessarily, but I do think Spain is an interesting team, and maybe a little bit of a sneaky team with some of the youth that they have there. But I think if I had to pick, I think I would go Spain on this one.
Spain's pool play, it's Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay. I think we're going to see Spain in the knockout rounds at the very least, right?
You would hope so, yes.
Lauren, we will be picking your brain throughout this tournament, so appreciate you giving us some time today as a preview, and next time we'll have a U.S. men's national team game to at least react to. It'll be fun.
Yes, yeah, very excited. Thanks for having me, OC.
That is Lauren Beck, RSL Insider, and, of course, Major League Soccer Insider, one of our World Cup insiders we're going to be leaning on during this tournament. Those conversations are going to be brought to you by our friends over at Beer Bar, which will have the entire tournament on the big screens. Any game you want to watch. If you're a junkie and you're like, I have to see Iran versus Switzerland, guess where it's going to be on? And you'll have lunch specials, drink specials, great stuff at Beer Bar. You might even see Phil Dunphy there.
Yeah, you could see Ty Burrell. You could see Nick Raimondo at any given. I'm sure Nick will be a regular there during the World Cup.
All right, James, you get to watch an entire World Cup game at a table with one of those two, not both. Are you watching with one of the all-time great MLS goalkeepers? I forgot, you're supposed to say keeper in soccer, tender in hockey. I've been in hockey mode.
Right.
Sorry, guys. Sorry, all of you soccer purists out there.
You could say tendies maybe for the hockey goalie.
Okay. Would you rather watch it with Nick Raimondo, or would you rather watch with Ty Burrell?
Well, only one adjustment I'll make to that is it's got to be a white couch with Phil Dunphy, Ty Burrell.
That's who you're watching it with?
No, yeah, just because I'm not as big of a soccer fan and I love Modern Family, so Ty Burrell would be my pick. But if I were a bigger soccer fan, I absolutely would go with the Wall of the Wasatch.
I don't watch either. I never watched Modern Family, and I don't watch a ton of soccer. So I'm going with Raimondo because
local legend.
And then he's probably going to be like, "Stop asking me questions. I want to watch this game."
You're just like, I need someone to help me with the soccer knowledge.
I'm like, I'm trying to get like little tidbits to make me sound smart for when I come on air the next day.
Yeah.
Like, hey, so how did he get the read to make that stop? And he's just looking over. He's like, "Can I please enjoy my onion rings? Would you shut up? Would you leave me alone?"
No, I haven't seen the entire series. I haven't binged the entire series for Modern Family. Didn't watch it much when it was on TV, but I've watched enough of it. I've become a fan for sure.
Well, as long as we're talking about goalkeepers, goaltenders, players in goal, there was a really fascinating story in the Stanley Cup Finals last night. We'll get to that in the hot lunch, and of course, it relates to the Carolina Hurricanes goaltender. Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Brandon Bussey. That's a name you want to know. Brandon Bussey, undrafted rookie, 27-year-old, finally made it into the bigs on the hockey front, finally in the NHL after grinding it out in the minors. He was brought to the Carolina Hurricanes October to be their number 3 goaltender, basically. Last night, he was given the start in a Stanley Cup final game. He stopped 18 of 21 shots, and Carolina wins 5-3. Now, why is this more of a story beyond it being this great Cinderella thing and, you know, a guy being an unsung type of prospect getting to start a Stanley Cup final game? His first playoff start, by the way, happens to be as crucial a game as you can possibly find. It's now knotted up at 2 games apiece. Vegas is not exactly making anyone who's playing goal. They're not making that person's life easy. This Brandon Bussey came in and he just played an incredibly steady game, made some big saves, made some very timely saves that led to some momentum shifts and some breakaways for Carolina to score on the rebound, to score on the next trip up the ice. And he was, of course, interviewed after the game and just is the most hockey guy individual you could ever find. You know, didn't want to take any credit. It's your first playoff start. It's your first playoff win. It happens to be Game 4 of a Stanley Cup final, and you played incredibly well in a position that has become more of a problem for the Carolina Hurricanes as these playoffs have gone on. And he's just deferring and being like this small-town Canadian kid just hanging out, doing his thing, making it never mind, he's from New York. But just a guy not wanting any of the credit for himself. These hockey people are completely different than most professional athletes. He's 27 years old. He gets his first start, and he was asked, well, do you want to start the next game? He won't even say that. He won't even say, yeah, I want to start. I played well tonight. I think I've earned it. None of that. He just says, you got to talk to Rod, referring to his coach, Rod Brindamore. So in the midst of an incredible Stanley Cup final series, you're getting potentially this like Cinderella, not even Cinderella story. It's like it's just not supposed to be the kind of story that is told in a Stanley Cup final. Guys like him are not supposed to get that kind of opportunity. And it's not, I don't want to disparage his skills. If you're an NHL goalie, you're obviously among the elite in the world at that position just by making it into the NHL. But goodness gracious, to have that amount of pressure and to handle it the way that he handled it against a really, really good Vegas attack. It's wild. Why did they go with something different? Well, the Carolina Hurricanes have watched Anderson, their typical goalie. His last 2 rounds, his numbers have gone way down. He went from a .950 save percentage and just over a goal per game against to an .856 save percentage and almost 3 goals against. That's a pretty significant fall off. And again, you're playing against better competition as we're talking about the playoffs. So there's some expectation that it's going to get harder and that maybe your numbers aren't going to be as clean as they were. But he gave up against Vegas. Anderson gave up 12 goals on 65 official shots. For all of you math whizzes out there, that is effectively 82% save percentage, which is not good enough if you're trying to win the Stanley Cup. So
yeah. That's not good.
They go to the bullpen, so to speak, and they're just like, Anderson's a lefty. They're like, give me the young kid. He doesn't have any playoff starts, coach. I know. We're going to do it on Game 4. Good job, Brandon Bussey.
And it's not like he was all world. Like he gave up gave up 3 goals, but he was good enough to help him get the win.
His parents weren't even going to the game.
No expectation for him to play.
Because they didn't think he was going to play. His parents
Yeah.
were just like, yeah, we'll watch it on TV. We're proud of you, son, for being. And he had to call him and just be like, hey, I'm getting the start. So they flew.
Oh, they did get there.
Yeah,
okay.
But they were in New York.
Yeah, of course.
They were like, I'm not going.
They're like, we're going to the Knicks game.
Sorry, son. What'd you say? No, I'm in line at Madison Square Garden. It's taking a really long time to get in. What's that? You're going to start? Oh, good joke. That's crazy.
That is crazy. I thought you heard me go, disappointment. Like, oh man, they weren't able to be there in person. I'm glad they made it in person in Vegas.
He stopped 9 shots in the third period when Vegas was really putting on the pressure. 9 for 9, preserved the victory for Carolina, and you got to start him in Game 5.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that I've learned a lot over the last few years as I've paid a lot more attention to playoff hockey. The hot goaltender is better than for coaches, they see the hot goaltender as better than the dependable guy with the better and longer track record. And Bussy right now has got to be looked at as the hot goaltender.
And like if you're Anderson, there's probably some relief there. All these guys are elite hardcore competitors, right? But if you're getting a little bit yippy and you're going to be blamed for your team not winning a Stanley Cup final, when you get pulled in the third period of Game 3, you're probably just like, all right, this is going to allow me to reset. Then this kid comes out and plays a great game. Obviously, you're like, dang, I might have just lost my job. But if he's helping you win a cup, and what's the worst case scenario? Now Bussy gets an opportunity to do this again, or maybe, when he's got more time to think about it, maybe the moment gets a little bit bigger, a little bit scarier, a little bit harder. Now you've got your normal starter that you can pull the surprise, and you can put your normal starter back in the game. If you're the players around these goalkeepers, these goaltenders, you're looking at this situation like, all right, now we've got a reliable second option here. Even if that reliable second option is your normal starter, you got to feel better about it if you're Carolina.
Yeah.
Could change the dynamic of this series pretty drastically, honestly.
And to localize it, this is why the backup goaltender is such a big deal for the Utah Mammoth, because we saw this past season there was a lot of hope for Vitek Vanacek, who's a Stanley Cup champion and has had some good games as a backup goaltender for the Florida Panthers heading into this past season. Didn't do well enough for Bear Tournier to be able to trust him basically at any point at the last half of the season, including all 6 games in the playoffs. And Veggie wasn't all world. You need that guy in case your number one guy, as much as we love Veggie and as effective as he can be, when he's off a little bit, you need to be able to have a trustworthy goaltender behind you to be able to come in relief and become that hot goaltender. Mammoth haven't had that luxury over the last couple of seasons. They didn't have it in their playoff series loss to Vegas. Hopefully that's something they can have going forward.
That's your hot lunch here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Ron McBride Foundation is bringing the head and the heart to the Utah State Fair Park on August 22nd. Tickets and info at ESPN700sports.com. You can also text HEART to 33986 for your chance to score a pair of tickets. All right, we're flipping things upside down a little bit in hour number 2. The Daily Dump is going to start us off because Jeff Schwartz is joining us at 12:30 to talk about this Brendan Sorsby ruling and what, if anything, can be done by college football, by the Big 12, by college sports in general to figure out how you move forward with a guy who admitted to thousands and thousands and thousands of sports wagers, which has been an absolute cardinal sin, hard, fast rule, a big-time no-no. First, though, we get to the Daily Dump. That's next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for the Daily Dump. ValleyPlumbing.com to make your appointment today for drain cleaning, plumbing needs, heating, air conditioning. Call them and say, hey, I got another problem in my house. Can you fix this? They might be able to send somebody out for that. The truck with the duck. I'm glad James put this in the notes. Winter Classic coming New Year's Eve 2026 to Rice-Eccles Stadium, Colorado Avalanche, Utah Mammoth. Winter Classic tickets are going on sale next Tuesday at 10 a.m. via Ticketmaster. I already aired my grievance with the Ticketmaster platform's absolutely horrific interface. But if that's the only way you can get your tickets, or at least primarily that's the only way you can get your tickets, and then the secondary market will do its thing. But this is for all the people who did not have season ticket packages, half-season ticket packages. This is the general public sale. Of course, the secondary market has had – they've had the previously purchased tickets already listed, but now this is like the actual NHL – Utah Mammoth, Rice-Eccles, we're releasing more tickets to be sold to the general public. So if you missed your opportunity and you've looked at the secondary market and been like, that is disgusting, I'm not paying that much money for a regular season hockey game, I understand. This is your opportunity beginning next Tuesday to get yourself in the queue and try to get yourself the face value tickets. Even face value, by the way, is pretty expensive. I'll tell you that. But the logic is once-in-a-lifetime kind of situation.
I mean, you can look at it this way. Maybe you tried to budget for World Cup tickets before you knew what the prices were, and you're like, whoa, that's out of my budget. Maybe since you already budgeted for that and you can't go, maybe this will fit in your budget for that.
And I'm not going to advocate for ever reselling tickets, but if you can get the face value ticket, and I think 8 is the most you can buy at once. If you get 8 tickets, then maybe you can offload a couple and pay for your own tickets. I don't advocate for that because you should leave the 4 that you don't want to use for somebody else to get at face value. But, we do live in a capitalist society. There are ways. By the way, as long as we're talking about tickets and those World Cup tickets, I told you when we were speaking with Lauren Beck, I have not yet looked up the get-in price for SoFi Stadium for the U.S. men's national team debut at Inglewood. And you know what? As many people anticipated, the get-in price has come down just a little bit. Not significantly, but it's down just a little bit. You can get into this game, USA-Paraguay, this Friday, 6 p.m.
Is it under 800?
It's $881.
Okay. See, I'm waiting for it to get under 800, OC. I can't go yet.
Okay, here's the thing, though, James. This is where it's getting most interesting for me because $881 is in the nosebleeds, okay? You're way, way up there. If you're willing to pay $15.57, you're sitting in the lower bowl. You're row 11.
We talked about this with the Messi match, Messi Day at America First Field in Sandy. It was about that split. You're paying hundreds of dollars for and feels out of budget for nosebleed, very top of the stadium. But it was what, $1,200 for basically front row tickets?
Yeah,
for the Messi match. I mean, this is. If I could afford $800, I might think about paying double that to sit on the 11th row. Yeah.
I mean, row 11, seats 5 and 6, and this is on StubHub, which, unlike Ticketmaster, StubHub has the this will be the view from your seat, like the little AI-generated thing. And, I mean, it's
pretty good.
It's not bad. I'm going to hold up my screen to the YouTube feed, all right, in case all of you out there are just pining to know what that seat looks like. I mean, that's pretty good. It's a nice little lower bowl seat there. Not bad.
Nice little weekend with your nice little lower bowl seat.
Little Home Depot, little Bed Bath & Beyond, and lower bowl seats.
Little SoFi Stadium.
Little SoFi Now,
World Cup.
I think so. I'm not gonna lie. This is how my brain works with these things. Is I'm like, oh, did I just find a cool little bargain on this? Should I surprise my wife and get her a couple of tickets and send her
2 days before?
2 days before, and then just be like, because there is a place to stay in Southern California. She's like, all right, but then where I would get absolutely hyper furious, James, is you'd pay $1,500 for the seat. So $3,000 basically for 2 seats, and now you're like, oh crap, I forgot I got to buy 2 of these things, and then it's going to be $400 for the dang Ubers in and out of the stadium.
Yeah,
and then that's where, because my brain is twisted and backwards, that's where I'm going to start getting mad.
Even if you had your own car, you're paying that much in gas probably.
And well, the parking, the parking is going to be $250.
Yeah,
plus the 6 hours of your day that you spend trying to get in and out. I mean, it's going to be.
Yeah, you're gonna pay more than you want to somehow, OC.
And it ultimately comes down to someone like me who's not a hardcore soccer fan, right? Doesn't know everybody on this U.S. men's national team. Doesn't have, obviously I want to see Team USA win it all. Doesn't have any kind of realistic expectation. It really comes down to, do I want to be able to say, not even to other people, not on social media. I'm out of that world now, thankfully, where I feel like I've got to, prove to everyone what I'm doing. But do I want to be able to say to myself, to my kids,
and have that memory for yourself?
I went to a World Cup soccer game, and it was awesome. Am I willing to pay $5,000 to go to a World Cup soccer game? And for some people, the answer to that is absolutely 100% yes.
Well, you think about The Athletic wrote that they had that piece in The Athletic about the fans who paid tens of thousands of dollars to go to the Knicks game.
Yes,
and some more. And you mentioned other people asking fans how much they paid, right? In that article in The Athletic, when he asked, do you feel like that was worth it? Almost all of them said, yeah, we're huge Knicks fans. It's absolutely worth it. We got to take out a loan, but that's fine.
That's not fine.
No, at the end of the game,
not fine, people. We don't support that. But
at the end of the game, when they lost, they were not feeling like it was as fine. But before the game, they're like, yeah, this is worth it. It's the same. Similar thing when you're talking about a World Cup. I mean, I don't have that kind of money for it, but if I could afford that, I would feel like it was worth it to do it.
I have to find the video that I watched because, one guy was for sure in the mob, and another guy had to have been a drug
Sanitation.
dealer. Another guy had to have been a drug dealer because they're just like, how much did you pay for your seat? And he was like, I was like $42,000. And they're like, what do you do for work? He's like, I'm actually unemployed. This is kind of crazy. No, you're not. You're not unemployed if you spent that much money. You know what I mean? So I got to find that video so I can retweet it or something. But in any case, that's your get-in price right now at SoFi. $881 will get you in the building all the way up at the top. But if you can double that, which I get is a big ask, you're down on row 11 in the lower bowl. If you want to sit, if you've got, you can't go to double the price, but you can go up to from $881 to $1,278. You're in the second tier of seats.
Is this the non-gamblers version of going double or nothing? You know what? Maybe I will just spend the extra money for this higher ticket, because I feel that's kind of like the tempting thing, even though I am no chance I'm making it to this World Cup game. In the back of my mind, I'm like, all I got to do is double it and I get 11th row seats.
You know what's so funny is I can't tell you how many fights my wife and I have gotten over this exact line of thinking. Where I'm just like, why did you spend so much on that? Like, well, the regular one was $50 and this one was only $75 and it's way better. And I'm just like, no, spend the $50. What are you doing? Why are you buying boar's head lunch meat?
Well, you could just get the regular stuff.
It costs twice. It's better. No, it isn't. It's not better. It's got better branding. Stop it. But we probably have a Boar's Head rep, by the way, driving around that's going to text in 877-353-0700.
Hey, if you need advertising.
It ain't better, okay?
If you need advertising,
Give me the
we
Kroger
will
stuff.
say it is better. We promise you.
Prove it to me if you think it's that much better. But now I'm doing it on air. As much as I have fought against this line of thinking for years, I'm now doing it on air. I'm now falling into it. Just like, well, yeah, you know what? Actually, it's only literal double the cost, but the seat is better. It's a much better experience.
Every fast food place has it's only this much more to go up another size.
It's only 40 cents more to supersize. And it's only an extra 800 calories when you do so. How did I do this? How did I become that which I hate?
Yeah.
On the air.
I hope I know you said your wife never listens, but I hope she's listening right now so she can tell you at home. See?
Yeah. We're safe. We're safe from that.
Did you see, by the way, Mauricio Pochettino says we don't have anybody in the top 100, but we can win the World Cup.
Well,
I mean, you expect that from a coach, but he sounded, and reading it sounds like he actually does believe that, which you got to love from the U.S. men's national team coach. The
Guardian put out their annual list of the top players in the world, and Christian Pulisic is the top U.S. player. He's ranked 116. Now, the Guardian is never going to give American players the credit they deserve, so there's something that you could take away from that.
Bias. We hate the Guardian over here for that reason.
Pulisic, let's say he's player number 80, right, instead of player number 116. I don't know, and I honestly, I don't enjoy admitting this. I don't know enough about the gap between Leo Messi and Christian Pulisic to tell you one way or another how important it is to have those elite megastar level players in order to win. I don't think, because soccer is a game where so much happens, there are so many random variables in every single game. It's hockey on a much larger scale, right? And there are just all of these little micro adjustments and things. You cannot live on one player alone. Now, having those players in addition to having a bunch of other guys, the problem is not that you don't have a top 100 player if you want to win the World Cup. Is the problem is you have to have 5 top 100 players to win the World Cup.
At various positions.
They've got to be on the pitch together at the same time. This is soccer. I mean, all sports are like this. Basketball is the one where you can get by on having, you can do pretty well with one megastar. You can do really, really well with 2 big-time stars. But even now, we're finding out that if you have the reigning MVP and other guys who are all-star caliber players, but they don't play up to snuff, what do you get? You get what happened to Oklahoma City.
And you lose before you're expected to, yeah.
They had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, this year's MVP, back-to-back MVP, right? Chet Holmgren is a guy that if you look at him, if you take Chet Holmgren and how he plays through the regular season and through most of these playoffs, you're just that's exactly the accessory piece that you need. But what happens when he disappears in a Western Conference final? Then you can't advance. You can't, right? So do I think Team USA is going to win the World Cup? No. Obviously not. Do I look at it and say, well, it's because you don't have a top 100 player? No, it's not that either. That's Christian Pulisic and everybody else on this team are going to go out there and they're going to fight. The collaborative effort of all guys on the pitch at the same time are going to be the difference maker for Team USA. And it's not even like Argentina can just roll the ball out there and say, well, we've got Leo Messi. He's the best player in the world. He's maybe the best player to ever do it, so we're going to win this thing. Does that guy make a massive difference? Of course, yes. But if Argentina doesn't also have 4 of the top 100 alongside him, they're not winning it either. The reason people are so high on Spain right now is because they have depth. The reason why people are so pumped about what France could be this year is because France is not just we've got Kylian Mbappe, so we're good. It's because Kylian Mbappe is surrounded by a bunch of other guys that are the number 1 player on their respective teams or the number 2 player on their respective teams. Mauricio Pochettino has to say, yes, we can win the World Cup. Otherwise, you shouldn't be the coach, right? He should believe, for real, they can win the World Cup. But he doesn't. None of us do. And until it is proven, Team USA, the U.S. men's national team, they've won in World Cup history. They've won, 2 elimination games? Or they've made it.
The farthest they've gone is the quarters in 2002.
Yeah.
And so that was the expectation for this team going back 4 to 8, or about 4 years ago, heading into the last World Cup, was once they're in the unit, like this one, we'll see how far they can go. Very talented, but 2026 is the year they've been building towards. That should be a team that can get back to the quarterfinals. They have not played to that form over the past year or so. And so you hear people like Lauren Beck, who joined us in last hour, adjusting that to, okay, let's see if they can win the group. That'd be great if they could just win the group, which is obviously a couple rounds, one round below what we thought was not necessarily a given, but that was the hype around this team just a few years ago. So, yeah, quarters would be the absolute. That would be incredible if they make it there. Doesn't seem like they will, though.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. By the way, if we did somehow win the World Cup, you can't tell America anything. We're hockey gold medalists. Now we're the best in soccer, too. Like, it's probably better for the world if we don't win a World Cup. Yeah, we just,
you know what? Let's keep them humble in one sport.
I'll tell you, if we win, if somehow Team USA is even in the conversation to win a World Cup, when I go overseas next, which will be to Wimbledon, I'm going to be wearing American flag hat, American flag shirt, American flag
scarf,
shorts,
the American soccer scarf,
the scarves. And when people say anything, I'll be like, "What's that? We're the best in soccer too."
They're like, "It's not even called that. That's not even the name of the sport." Like, it is now.
It is now. We're the best at it, so we get to name it for the whole world. Guess what? You have to call football American football. That's what it is now here as well. And we're bringing a team over. You get the Jacksonville Jaguars. You better like it.
You better like it. Trevor Lawrence is your guy.
I know a lot of you are not out there watching Orioles baseball, but Braden Montgomery.
This is a cool story, yeah.
Rookie. Hits a walk-off home run in his major league debut. Now, we have seen plenty of times where guys in their first major league at-bat, they walk up and they hit a home run.
Which is also awesome.
Also awesome, right? That is just like this fairy tale childhood dream. I mean, literally, my brother and I used to play home run derby with a wiffle ball and a wiffle bat.
Yeah.
In our side yard, where we'd take a swing, we try to hit it over, and we'd be, this is me making my first at bat for the Minnesota Twins or whatever. Like that. That's what this Major League Baseball offers us sometimes, is these great stories. This cat goes in and hits not just like, oh, I hit a home run in my first at bat, which by the way is awesome. Plenty of those teams go on though and they lose, and you get the ball, you keep that bat forever, whatever. Your teammates know it happened, but then we all forget about it. This dude hitting a walk-off in his first major league game, getting your team the win, getting your city the win. What a beauty.
5th player to do it. The last guy was Angels player Carlos Perez. The only guy I've ever, that you say his name and you go, oh, I know that guy, is Miguel Cabrera, who did it in 2003 for the Marlins. So, doesn't necessarily mean that player's going to have a Hall of Fame career. Miguel Cabrera is the only one of the 5 that can really say that. But incredible memory for him, incredible story for Braden Montgomery. Only goes down from here, right? No, it's going to go up.
All right, before we get to Jeff Schwartz here in a couple of minutes, we have to talk about this. The Salt Lake Bees, in their new ballpark, they've got some new mascots to introduce.
Yeah, some friends.
You got Bumble, All right, it's now a cast of characters. All right, you've got Bumble, which was that always Bumble?
I don't remember.
Wasn't his name like Busby or something?
Was it? It's Bumble now. That's the main mascot.
877-353-0700. You now have named your mascot after a dating app. Okay, Bumble. Honey, the best friend, is a female bee. Guys, let's make this a romantic interest. Can we? Let's make it like a real Hollywood story. Daisy, a dog. I want to know if this is a mascot dog or a real dog.
It's a mascot. They're all mascot costumes.
I want a real dog instead. Okay, bees. But Daisy is named after Daybreak, where of course the ballpark is now.
So that's why the spelling is Day SIE DAYSIE, which I'm like, you know what?
That's just how
that's
people spell
totally
it. People spell it in Utah.
They talk about the Utah original being the Dirty Sodas. The Daisy DAY is the real Utah original there. Don't love that, but it makes sense. They're trying to do a creative thing to name it after their new city.
Let's see. Bumble and Friends. You've got Jensen, who is a Utah Raptor mascot of sorts. He is named after the paleontologist who discovered the Utah Raptor.
So,
and all of you out there probably know this by now, but the Utah Raptor is actually a real dinosaur that is the size of the velociraptors that you saw on the Jurassic Park movies. The real velociraptors are like knee high. They're tiny.
yeah.
So the Utah Raptor, they should have just Velociraptor sounds cooler. That's why they went with Velociraptor. Imagine how much better it would have been for all of us if the Jurassic Park franchise was full of Utah Raptors. That'd be so sweet.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then Swiggy, the original Dirty Soda mascot.
And my favorite of this release is the little they did like a couple sentences description of each of them, little bio of each of them, but it all started with Bumble, the charismatic leader. Honey, the best friend. Daisy, the lovable pup. Jensen, the sporty prankster.
I like the sporty prankster. I hope Jensen ends up just causing problems for everyone.
He's like the poltergeist. What's the poltergeist on Harry Potter? Anyway. Pranking everybody, and then Swiggy, the Utah original.
It does appear that they've got Jensen with some feathers, because of the whole, dinosaurs became birds type thing.
And the new research that shows that T-Rexes typically had feathers. So yeah,
you know what I cannot stand? When they do the renderings of the T-Rex covered in like fluffy feathers and just make them look like a giant goose.
Yeah.
Can't handle it, man.
I mean, it's
I need
probably
my
going to be
the old way.
It's probably going to be generational. Those of us like me and you and older are going to be like, that's just wrong. And younger, since this new research has come out, no, they had feathers. That's what a T-Rex used to look like.
Don't like it. Do not like it. No direct fossil evidence of feathers has been found specifically in preserved Utah raptor remains. Scientists agree it almost certainly possessed feathers. Huh. We might have something for my airing of grievances on Friday there. Maybe. All right, got to take a quick one here. Jeff Schwartz, our football insider and gambling insider. Well, the Venn diagram has come to a great concentration point as we talk about the Brendan Sorsby saga with Jeff Schwartz next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. There's no significant update on the Brendan Sorsby saga here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Reports are out that on the athletic director's call organized by the Big 12 yesterday, all 15 of the non-Texas Tech athletic directors were protesting and saying, we don't want Brendan Sorsby to be eligible. We don't want Brendan Sorsby to be able to play. For 14, that makes sense. For Cincinnati, you have to just recuse yourself. Cincinnati was alerted to Brendan Sorsby's gambling last August and still let him play. So Cincinnati cannot protest. Hopefully they were called out on the call yesterday. I hope Mark Harlan was like, yeah, we don't, express the Utah opinion, whatever that is. You're the boss. You're the head of the department. You can do your thing. I hope that everyone else was like, hey, Cincinnati, shut up. If I'm Texas Tech especially, I'm going, Cincinnati, you can't say a word about Brendan Sorsby being eligible to play here. You should have said he was ineligible to play there. Of course, Cincinnati couldn't afford that, and Texas Tech feels like they can't afford it either. That's the whole problem we have here. Social media is rife with opinion and news and all that stuff around this saga and around the decision by a judge in Texas to grant an injunction allowing Brendan Sorsby to be eligible for the 2026 college football season. As I have stated many times now, I went all the way up and down the ladder and settled on, you know what, fine, let him play. I don't think he's going to give you what you think anyway. And I think that everyone is going to be hating on you guys for the entire season. And you're going to deserve it. Let's see what Jeff Schwartz thinks. This is a guy, I want to make sure we have the right context here. Jeff played at the University of Oregon. Jeff played a decade in the NFL. Jeff has been every level of football. He's been in every conversation with football. And Jeff is also a sports gambling aficionado. So, knows all the watchdog organizations, knows all of the steps and the tips and the tricks of the trade to make sure we keep corruption out of the sports themselves by flagging things like, players gambling or irregular betting habits and things like that. He speaks from a much more knowledgeable perspective than the average bloke. Jeff Schwartz joins us now. Hi, Jeff.
Hey, buddy. How you doing? It's been a while.
I know. It's been a long time. I hope you're getting geared up for me to bother you like on a weekly basis, at least sooner than later.
I'm looking forward to starting the season. Absolutely. You would have liked this today in class. My daughter's last day was today. The teacher did like an awards thing, right? And she gave my daughter like the most peaceful classmate award, essentially. And I sent it to the group text, the family group text, and I'll show it. And they were shocked because her nickname is the Witch Dragon. So it's kind of weird that the Witch Dragon got the Peaceful Beaver Award or whatever it was at school today. Old Emmy Schwartz. You'd much rather have your kids be peaceful in school than not, I guess. But that is not my daughter. So that's the life we're living right now.
That's hilarious. Just a different personality with her schoolmates than when she's at home. That's good.
I'll take it. Yeah.
Let's talk about this Sorsby thing. Obviously, he's been granted the injunction. He's eligible to play. Depending on who you talk to, there are a lot of folks that expressed like shock and dismay over this. And then we had, for example, like Ari Temkin on yesterday, and Ari was like, I've been telling people this is how it's going to end, that he is going to get this injunction. He is going to be allowed to play this year. Where were you on your level of surprise when it came to Sorsby winning his case and getting to play in 2026?
Well, it depends if you care about the rule of law or not, right? Because he broke the rules. Like, he admitted he broke the rules, and, he claimed that it was his mental health, right, his gambling addiction that was the reason why, he made these wagers and the reason why he was involved in sports wagering, and he went to rehab for it, and that the NCAA did not consider those mitigating circumstances when they're supposed to consider that whether or not you are suspended. But he broke the rule that we all know as players. You cannot bet in your own team. It's a very black and white rule. Do not bet in your own team. Right now, people will say, well, he wasn't playing at the time. And you're right, he wasn't playing at the time. But, Sean, if you start allowing this to happen, then what happens next? Guys will start wagering on games they play in. Like, that's the next logical thing to happen. Like, the idea, like, the reason why I think you have to be so harsh in punishing players at the lowest level of crime, right, is because you don't want this to escalate to something else. And if you allow the first thing to happen, then the next thing's going to happen. Next thing's going to happen. Next thing's going to happen, right? And so that's what I worry about. And look, the judge, said, that this would do irreparable harm to him today out of the season. So he's basically going to stay the case, right, until after the season. They'll figure it out then. Well, obviously, he'll be in the NFL then, so who cares if he gets suspended, right? I just think it's a really bad message to send that you can gamble on your own team and then blame mental health. And look, you talk about mental health, I talk about it. We have our own, issues to deal with in our lives. But I find it hard to believe that a rule that is so steadfast and you don't gamble on your team is something you can claim mental health is the reason why you broke the rule, right? Like, it's not like you consciously did that. You knew what you were doing, in my opinion. You knew what you were doing when you placed those bets, because it's not something that's like maybe don't bet on your team. No, don't bet on your team. Don't bet on the sport you play in. They have meetings about this. I'm sure Utah will have an extra meeting this summer when the players come back to the start of training camp about sports wagering. Everyone does it. Everyone knows what it's about. So I just found it to be the wrong decision, in my opinion. And if you can't just say, hey, he broke a rule, he gets suspended for it, why do any rules matter, right?
Well,
you can just always say, well, my mental health. Sean, we have no rules anymore? Is that where we're at? We have no rules whatsoever in college sports.
Well, I know this is not a criminal case. This is an eligibility case, but it does set, like you said, it sets a very dangerous precedent where you say, all right, well, if the gambling is in this case, the illegal activity, illegal by the rules of the body that you exist under as a college football player, you know it, you have known it, everyone knows it, you clearly exhibited that you knew it was against the rules because you were trying to hide it, and then when it all came out, then you decided that this was a mental health problem for yourself. If gambling and then your the consequences of gambling are going to be detrimental to your mental health, then why is this not just the defense, the injunction that every player in every case, in every sport, is always going to seek? Oh, I was drunk driving, and now I'm suspended for a game for drunk driving, but being suspended for this game is actually going to be detrimental to my mental health, so I need a judge to push this off until February so I can play. Like, I was being somewhat facetious yesterday when I said I'm not going to accept any negative consequence for any of my actions ever again. But that's effectively what is happening here. He's a guy who broke the rule thousands and thousands of times, knew he was breaking a rule while he was doing it, and instead of having to pay the consequences for that, he just cries wolf about, oh, well, it'll be too hard for me to miss this season, so he's protected from it. No negative consequences means I don't have to accept when I do something wrong, whatever that punishment is.
You're exactly right. Unfortunately, it does feel like this is happening way too often in other walks of society, right, where people committing crimes and getting away with it and whatnot. And this is, again, it's not a crime. You did nothing illegal, right? So that's the wrong way of verbiage to use. But the fact is, like, and the thing is, he admitted he did it. Like, yeah, no, I did it. And it does, look, gambling addiction is real, okay? I'm not saying that he doesn't have a gambling addiction or that it's not a real thing he has, but he also knew that what he was doing was illegal. I can't imagine he didn't know that, right? Because of all the – so what this feels like it's going to allow what you say to just come up with that as your reasoning every time and maybe take away from some real mental health issues, right, that are bothering people in the sport that come up now and then. And, like, I don't like it, man. Like, the other thing I want to say, I see this pushback a lot. We just bet on his own team. Why do you care? Why does it matter? And I'll tell you why it matters, in my opinion. So people will say, well, just bet your team to win. Like, who cares? Well, let me tell you something, Sean. If you have an extra 5,000 on the game, 10,000 on the game, are you going to do some unnatural things to try to win that game? Are you a quarterback going to force a throw on third down? You're a running back, a wide receiver. Are you going to try to dive over a pile, put the ball over the goal line on first down when your coach tells you not to? You fumble the ball at the back of the end zone. It's a touchback, right? Like, are you going to injure players on purpose on the other team? There's chances that players have every game to pull up and not injure someone. And most of the time we take those. I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't play to hurt people. And like, are players going to try to hurt other guys? What happens? What if you're Sorsby and you bet on the first 7 games of the season and you don't bet on game 8? Draft teams will figure that out pretty fast. Well, what does Sorsby know about this? What happens if you're down $10,000, $20,000? You need some cash. You can turn to a third party. You're gonna turn to the local bookie in town. You're gonna turn to someone who tells you, "Hey, man, can you throw your player prop? Can you throw the game?" Like, to me, you just have to say no to this all, right? The integrity of the game is so important. When you watch any sports, we're gonna watch Game 4 tonight of the NBA Finals. When you watch that game tonight, you're watching it knowing that the players are there for the right reasons, right? They're trying to win the basketball game. If you're watching that game and you think to yourself, I don't know, man, I don't know if Wemby's in it for the right reasons or Brunson, like, it ruins the experience as a fan. It makes you question whether or not, the sport you're watching is valid, whether or not the results are valid. Every time Texas Tech plays, right, wrong, and different. Sorsby did not throw games. I'm not accusing him of doing that. He absolutely did not do that. Every interception he throws, though, Sean, every fumble, you're going to wonder, right? You're going to wonder about it. Every late touchdown he throws, to score one more touchdown. Did he bet on his team in this game? It's bad. It's all bad.
What's funny is he played really pretty poor against Utah last year. Cincinnati ended up losing that game by whatever it was, 35 points. And, of course, we were like, yeah, Utah just figured it out. And we talked to the coaching staff, and the coaching staff said they found some tendencies of his on film that they forced him into. And you're like, yep, this coaching staff is great. And that's why it happened the way it did. And I still believe that is the bulk of it. But we had a texter yesterday who was just like, Sorsby's game against Utah last year was absolutely terrible. It was his worst game of the year. How do we know that he was trying his hardest? And I'm like, man, like, even though I just don't want to have to ask that question to drive your point home. I don't want to have that be a possibility. I want the true story to be, well, no, Utah's just better, and that's why they beat him that way, and that's why they forced him to look bad in that game. But then someone brings in, like, well, now that we know that this guy's deeply involved in gambling, and to be fair to him, we don't have any evidence that he was gambling against his own team or that he was gambling on his own performances, et cetera, et cetera. We do, however, have evidence that he was funneling money to other people to place wagers for him, so there's the possibility there. But that's the point that you're making, that we don't want to have to ask that question because it compromises your experience as a fan.
It compromises the legitimacy of the game at hand. Look, I say this often. I use the example often. It feels like kind of, I don't know what the right word is to explain this, but like the NFL cares about the integrity of the shield, right? They talk about it all the time. And gambling is such a black mark, a red mark, whatever you want to use, like on the league, that they suspend 1 year, right? If you're caught gambling on the sport. Like Calvin Ridley, right? He was on injured reserve and he put a gamble in on some team, right? 1 year. You hit your wife, you get 6 games. Right? Like, because they don't view that, right, Sean, as an integrity problem for the entire league. It might be an integrity problem for me and you. Like there was a story about a Rams player yesterday. I'm like, what are we doing, man? Like, why are we touching women? Like, but they spent a year for gambling because the integrity of the game is tied up in that, where unfortunately it doesn't feel like, players continue to play, obviously, after those incidents happen. Like, that's how important the integrity of the game that the NFL feels about it. In college football, and again, it's not college football per se, it's just one judge at the moment, is sort of deciding that the integrity of the game might not matter as much. And just where this leads, I don't know.
That's one of the many problems I have with this whole situation, because what we have seen in the last several years for college sports is it's getting closer and closer to the pro game. It's a lot more permissive than the pro game, right? But players and coaches and everyone, they're just like, yeah, we're pushing towards this being professional. This is professional. The players and their advocates, their agents have said, no, you treat them like professionals. They are professionals. They're earning money for you like professionals do. They should be compensated like professionals. And when professionals are caught gambling, when professionals are involved in gambling, the consequences are dire. They are punished, like you just said, more heavily for that than they are for things that are far more morally reprehensible, if we're being honest, right? Like,
absolutely, yes.
But because of the point that you just made. So we have to decide, we don't, these athletes and their representatives have to decide, okay, you want these guys to be treated like professionals? You want these young women in college sports to be treated like professionals? Part of being treated like a professional is you better be willing to accept the kind of punishments that the professionals get when they're breaking these kinds of rules. And we've just thrown it all out the window. This one moron judge is threatening so many different things because he fell for I don't even think he fell for it. I just think he's doing somebody a favor. But he got duped by the whole mental health argument. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I feel, it's a very sensitive topic, right? The mental health part of this, right? Because I think that obviously, he had an addiction. He was betting on, balls and strikes on individual pitches at a baseball game. Like, he's sending money out of state to people to gamble for him. There's ways to gamble in a non-gamble. Like, if I go to Utah, I can still find a wager. Like, I don't have, you don't have to send money outside the state to make it happen. So he definitely had an addiction. He definitely, needed to find a way to get over it. I'm with that. The problem is that now that the judge accepted this argument, to your point, you can use it on anything, right? You can use it on any excuse. Now it feels like, if you go to alcohol rehab for 30 days after you get a DUI, does that mean that your mental health, that's the reason why you got a DUI? I don't like the last thing I want to say. This I can't stand that people make this argument. It's so dumb. People say, "Well, college football is brought to you by DraftKings or FanDuel." Okay, so if you get a DUI, do I get to say, "Well, the NFL sponsored by Coors Light"?
Yeah,
you have self-control.
Well,
what are you doing? There are rules. The rule is you can't gamble on your team while you're playing. It doesn't matter if you're. There's no DraftKings boost that says gamble on your team that you're playing on. Like, the idea that players can't follow the rule of law because DraftKings sponsors your college football team, to me, is just a ludicrous argument. It's very unserious.
Here's another thing, and this is more of a football question, right? So Texas Tech has decided to die on this hill, right? Texas Tech is like, yeah, man, we have this really good backup, Will Hammond, who's injured and rehabbing. But we're not going to wait for him. We spent this money on Sorsby. He's never played it down for Texas Tech. And they are like, yeah, we will become public enemy number one to defend this kid's ability to play here. Texas Tech could very easily walk away from this. They could very easily say, yeah, we're not going to. Is this worth it for Texas Tech in your mind? Is this whole thing where Brendan Sorsby is going to be their starter, barring any surprise changes? He's going to be their starter in every game. They're going to get booed out of every building. They're going to get ragged on by everybody for every win and even more for every loss. Is it worth it from a football perspective to defend this one player?
Well, look, from their perspective, they're treating this like it's them versus NCAA, right? Like they are setting a precedent to help all student athletes, right? Which is kind of BS, I think. Look, their odds jumped pretty significantly to win the Big 12. I think they are the rightful favorite to win the Big 12. He's a very good quarterback. If this was not something that was on his record, he would be a first-round pick, I think, after this season. He's a really good quarterback. The team is going to be good again this season. they're doing a couple of things, Sean. They I think rightfully, honestly, have figured out that in the end, nothing will change. Like a lot of this big bad talk. Oh, the Big Ten's not going to schedule Texas Tech anymore. I don't believe that. The Big 12 commissioners the Big 12 ADs have gone together, and nothing's going to happen, Sean. Not this year, at least. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. But I feel like a lot of hot air right now. A lot of puffing the chest up. I think Texas Tech is rightfully just like, yeah, none of the things you threaten are going to happen. So we'll just play Thorsby. We'll try to win a championship this season, and we'll deal with the backlash later. Or maybe there won't be. Like in week 7, are we talking about this? I mean, if they're 7-0 and top 3, maybe, but probably not, right? I just think they calculate this. The outrage will be over pretty fast.
Yeah, I think this is one where it might not be, but we'll see. Like if
it won't be like
if
are you guys hosting Texas Tech this year?
No, so Utah and BYU both missed Tech on the regular season schedule.
So like it's going to be the boos are going to be loud. Like it's going to be hostile every place you go, and maybe it affects scheduling. Like maybe the basketball team and softball team is really good. Like can't find non-conference opponents. It won't happen in football, in my opinion. I mean, even then, that really helps Texas Tech play 3 really bad non-conference opponents. So I don't know, man. I think that every school would do this. I think every school would. I think Oregon, I think Utah, if they're in the same spot, would defend their quarterback. Honestly, I don't think that would change. Now, maybe they don't take the quarterback, right? Like this was all, I think, out there before they went. Not out there publicly, but it was known he was under investigation before Texas Tech signed him. So maybe our schools wouldn't have done that, Sean. I feel like if he was on the roster, our schools would fight for him the way Texas Tech has.
I guess you're probably right. I don't know definitively because the consequence for everybody is so broad and sweeping. I mean, the precedent here, like we've already talked about enough, is just it's a dangerous one to set. And I don't want to like be overly dramatic, but if your quarterback at Oregon was caught dealing drugs, which is against NCAA rules and is against actual American law, I don't know that the team is going to be like, well, we put him in rehab and now we're appealing so that he can play. Like, I think that a lot of times when it's something this drastic, there are teams that are like, you know what? Yeah, we have to let these guys suffer their consequences. But I don't know. There's also plenty of examples of the opposite. There's plenty of examples of guys like when Baker Mayfield was running away from the cops and he was still playing. So it goes both ways.
I got to end with this. I saw this quote from Joey McGuire, the Texas Tech head coach. He said Brendan Sorsby returning for week 3 against Houston, because he was suspended, remember, week 1 and 2, is a stretch. Quote, he's recovering from an addiction. I've sat down with this young man multiple times, and what he's going through and what he has been through is serious. He's not like a meth addict.
Dude,
like he can't start week 3 because he has a gambling addiction.
This is another reason why I asked the question: is it worth it for Tech? Because like Joey McGuire went from being one of the most respected coaches in college football because of what he was able to put together last year to a guy who's now spinning things this way. Like we're probably not going to be allowed to talk to him at Big 12 Media Days, but I so desperately want to have him sit down in front of me and be like, do you really think this was about the mental health of Brendan Sorsby? Make that case for me, coach, because he's lying if he does. It's not about that at all. So that's what I mean. Is it worth it to have your coach, who's a really good football coach, sitting there spitting these like weird political spin lies and undermining his own respectability? It's just not for me, but for them, I guess it is.
He can't play in week 3 because he has a gambling addiction that he went to rehab for 30 days for in March. That's like the argument we're making here. Like, oh boy, this is the point. Like, I'm not saying the judge has to do a solid for all of us, but if he's suspended for the year, we're like, yeah, he broke the rules. That's what happens.
That's right.
Like, we're just like,
that's right.
Oh, like, yeah, okay, yeah, he broke the rules. I mean, like, look, I don't want to make this a broad thing on the country, but like we just don't respect the rule of law anymore in our country. We just don't. Like it's just fundamentally not part of what we believe anymore. A lot. It's unfortunate. But there's another example of it. Just like he broke a rule. It's a rule that's black and white. Everyone knows what the rule is. You might not like the rule. The things I don't like about rules in sports, I talk about all the time. It's sports specific. I don't like some of the rules we have in our country, but like they're rules. Like they are what they are. You can not like them, but to just say, yeah, I broke the rule, but whatevs, man. Like I wasn't in a good mental headspace, and the judge is like, yeah, cool, we're good. I think it's a bad precedent. Lastly, my wife just asked me if you're coming to Dallas, but are you coming to Dallas? Are you going to join me?
Well, yeah, I'm going to be in Dallas twice in 1 week, I think.
Let's go.
Because what?
And then you're coming here, I think. I'll be there. My bells and whistles on.
Yeah. What day's your party again?
Sunday, the 12th or 13th.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's what I thought.
Good. Okay. Awesome. Good.
All right.
She put you down in the thing. My wife is such a joy. She put you down as like a Sean radio guy. I'm like,
yes.
I'm like, can you just like we moved past radio guy. Like,
it's fine. It's fine.
I can't explain.
Maybe when we get to 10 years of knowing each other, I will have a last name. It's fine. It's fine.
And like, I think our wives talking in the internet too. Like they text each other. It's just.
It's fantastic.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but it's good to hear from you again, buddy. Looking forward to football season starting up again.
You're the man. Thank you, Jeff.
Take care, buddy. Bye.
That's Jeff Schwartz. I thought that's how he was going to feel about the situation. It's just like you have to be incredulous. If you've been in the sports world and in the college sports world for a long time, you have to be incredulous about where we have gotten to with this Sorsby situation. I want to talk about it every day, but I also don't want to talk about it anymore because it's just complaining. It's just being mad. We're way over time. We got to double up. Between the Pipes with Adrian Denny. Stanley Cup final knotted up at 2-2. Couldn't get much better. We'll talk about it with our hockey insider. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time to go between the pipes with my good friend Adrian Denny, brought to you by Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and Aladdin Industries. Our NHL/Utah Mammoth insider joins us here in studios once a week. Hi, Adrian.
Hey, Sean. Great to be with you, man.
What a game last night, huh?
Holy cow. Just another one where a team scores early, has a multi-goal lead, blows it. It's tied in the third period. We look like we're ticketed to overtime, and then Jordan Stahl gets his fourth goal of the playoffs, or I should say his
fourth goal of the final.
Fourth goal of the final, and then he gets his fifth goal of the final, and Carolina takes it, ties it up, and as we said last week, as hockey fans, we're just rooting for a 7-game series, I think, here.
I mean, it's been an incredible series. It's been an incredible Stanley Cup playoff the whole way through. You just highlighted the insanity of this particular series. There's been blown leads in every single game. Vegas apparently just loves to play great second period hockey. They're just pouring it on in the second period. So you never really know what you're going to get, Forrest Gump style. But now this series is knotted up at 2-2. They go back to Raleigh. And one of the biggest stories here is not the stars on either team. One of the biggest stories right now is the fact that Carolina found themselves in a bit of a desperation situation in goal. And Brandon Bussey, making his first playoff start, ends up saving 18 to 21 shots, gets his team the win, and I think makes a strong case that it's probably stay with the hot hand kind of a situation when they're back on home ice. What'd you think of that story?
Yeah, Carolina over the last couple of years has been kind of a musical chairs team in their goaltending department. Of course, Freddie Anderson starts the playoffs off for him, 12-1, and then they're down 4-0 on Saturday night. So they put Bussey in the third period, his Stanley Cup playoff debut. And then the question was, okay, what do they do with Vegas winning and going up 2-1? And they go with Bussey. And not only did Anderson not start, he did not dress Pyotr Kochetkov, who's kind of their prospect goalie. He has been for the last couple of years, who has a fun personality and he's competitive. I've been waiting for him to take over the crease for Carolina for the last 2-3 years. Freddie Anderson's getting a little older, right?
Yeah.
And then in October, they claim this Brandon Bussey off of waivers, who Florida was trying to send to the AHL. He was their third goalie. They signed him to be their AHL goalie, but he had to clear waivers to get back down there. Carolina claims him. He goes 31-6-2 with Carolina. He has stretches where he wins 14 of 15 starts, 9 of 10 starts, 6 of 7 starts during the season. So he's got kind of hot hand. They signed him to a multi-year deal, and then as they get closer to the playoffs, Freddie Anderson kind of took over, and he becomes the goalie. So they put Brandon Bussey in. He's a guy that 3 years ago was playing in the ECHL and just kind of a minor league goalie in the Boston system. Florida signs him, and here we are. He starts his first playoff game last night, which was in the final. First goalie since 1967 to make his first start in the Stanley Cup final and also win it. And he's, 27. So kind of a fun story there. And you look at the game, he made some big saves for Carolina. They tie up the series, and it seems just kind of appropriate for this series, right? That all of a sudden mid-series Carolina has a goalie take over, and are they going to ride him the rest of the way?
So the last time somebody won in goal, somebody won their playoff debut, was when they were wearing like the Friday the 13th Jason style masks in goal in the NHL. A totally different era of NHL hockey was the last time we saw something like this.
Yeah, in the final. To just come out of nowhere, first start in the final in the playoffs, win it. Two other guys had done it since 1967, make their playoff debut in the Stanley Cup final, but they didn't win. But just a fun story there for Bussy, who has had a storybook season as it is. He was ticketed to the American Hockey League with Florida sending him there as their third goalie, and then comes out, earns a long-term deal with Carolina. And if that wasn't enough, here he is, starting and winning his first playoff game in the final.
You've just sent me down a rabbit hole on what goaltending was like in 1967. Nobody even painted their masks back then. That didn't start until 1970. Everyone was just wearing those white plastic masks, which, by the way, compared to the equipment that they have now, it's like criminal that this is what these guys were protecting their faces with back then.
And
insane.
And 10 years before that, they weren't even
wearing masks. Yeah. They were just getting stitches every night. Absolutely insane. All right, so now, great story for Bussy. I'm going to assume that Brind'Amour stays with the hot hand and lets him start in Game 5, and we're down to a 3-game series, effectively. How does it play out?
Gosh, I don't think anybody knows. It's the third highest scoring series in final history, highest scoring since 1981. But one interesting thing, OC, and I don't remember this because, Florida and Edmonton was a good series. They started off with back-to-back overtime games last year, but that was the 5th highest scoring series all time. So we've seen 33 goals in 4 games. No lead is safe. You've got Brett Howden with the 12 goals in the regular season already having set a Vegas franchise record with 14 goals. More goals than Mitch Marner, who we've talked about. You've got a guy like Jordan Staal, the captain for Carolina, becoming the 4th player since 1967 to score at least a goal in the first 4 games of the Stanley Cup final. He's back in the final for the first time since 2009, when he was just a kid with the Pittsburgh Penguins, winning it with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. So he's 17 years between final appearances. He's the captain of Carolina, and he's the same age as Carolina head coach Rod Brind'Amour when he was the captain of Carolina in 2006, when they won their last Stanley Cup championship, their only Stanley Cup championship. And Jordan's older brother, Eric, was on that team as kind of a young pup for Carolina. So I remember watching that series back in 2006. He had Eric Staal playing for Carolina, and then he had his 3 little brothers, Eric and his brothers Mark and Jordan and Jared, and we were just waiting for them. They were 3 kids. They were showing the family photos of them at the lake up in Thunder Bay, Ontario, and this big, huge hockey family that was going to have 3 more brothers playing in the NHL, which they all did. And now you've got Jordan captaining Carolina.
That final goal that everyone's freaking out about. You've watched so much hockey, and we saw some just bananas, like deflections, some crazy, effectively lacrosse goals in the NHL this year, and you still get awe-inspiring goals from players that other players are like, I don't know how we pulled that one off. That was incredible.
Off of a turnover behind the net. This has not been a mistake-free series. Saturday night, when Vegas jumped up 4-0, you could look at least 3 of those goals and say, oh, Carolina, what are you doing? And then you get to the third period, it's like, oh, Vegas, what are you doing? And so it's not been mistake-free. It's been fun. Hasn't been perfect. There's been some little oopsies like that where you have a turnover in a bad spot. But OC, there's been so many instances like that where you have a turnover in a bad spot and a goalie makes a huge save, and it's like, yes, oh no. And then on the second chance, few seconds later, puck ends up on a stick like that at Jordan Stahl, and Carter Hart just couldn't quite get over there as Stahl was able to lift it and backhand it home. So not a perfect series, but a fun series. But, you get to this, they say, hardest trophy to win in sports, and sounds cliche, but you see how these guys, they're 2 months after the regular season ends still playing in a sport where the body, is taking a beating. And I think we've seen it, especially in this series, with the way that these two teams play. Like, I can see why, guys aren't 100%, energy's not 100%, but they're going all out.
I think that one of the reasons why we here in Utah have embraced hockey the way that we have in the time that we got hockey, right, is when a lot of the conversation in other pro sports is always just about like, oh, you got to be careful with this guy, you got to rest that guy, you got to load manage this guy. And all of those things they just don't belong in hockey. They just are not accepted in hockey. When you ask a basketball question to a hockey guy, they're always very kind and gracious with their answers, but they can't even imagine that thought process. Just like, yeah, I'm hurt, but why? We're in the playoffs. What do you mean I'm not going to play? Like they can't even fathom it, and I think that's just something that is still unique. It is, I shouldn't say still unique. It is now, feels like it is unique to hockey, where I think it was a lot more common in all pro sports back in the day. And it's like hockey's kind of the last game standing where the pros are like, yes, I'm going to take care of my body. I'm going to do the things necessary. But my job is to provide for this team. My job is to perform for this team. So I'm going to do that at my own expense.
I've got a lot of casual sports fans in my family, and I wouldn't even call them sports fans. But a couple nights ago, at my parents' house, we're getting ready to watch Knicks Spurs, and Knicks are taking the court. And my mom says, boy, those guys have no idea what it would be like to be in the Stanley Cup final right now. And then yesterday, I'm at my brother's house, and my sister-in-law is talking about Braden McNabb and how his face got ripped off by a puck. And then my 7-year-old niece, who plays sports, is a sports fan, but I wouldn't call her the diehard hockey fan like your 10-year-old brother. She starts diagnosing what happened, and that's a guy who came out the next game after being in the hospital for most of game 2, plays almost 40 minutes, and last night almost scored a goal that was taken away at the buzzer. But to talk to folks and seeing them notice, like, holy cow, that guy had his face ripped off, and he's back the next night playing 40 minutes, and then he almost scores another goal that would have been huge in the next game. But gosh, yeah, these guys go all out.
Also going on right now in the NHL world, the NHL scouting combine happening. And the Utah Mammoth are not in the same, like lottery position, thank goodness, because they're a playoff team. But when we talk about the evaluation process of the talent that's on the way up, the talent in the pipeline right now for this Utah Mammoth team, we've been discussing that with the guys that are in the juniors and maybe expected to make a leap sooner than later. The stories coming out of this scouting combine and the way that the scouting combine is conducted relative to the NBA and the NHL, and the NFL. So there's some really interesting stuff here, some funny meat on the bone with like some of the interview questions and things like that. How much attention have you paid recently to this NHL scouting combine?
Mike Fulton and I were talking about it on yesterday's episode of Mammoth Daily. Yeah, it's great to get the weights and the measures and see who's the fastest at this and blah, blah, blah. But let's talk about the questions getting asked, the interview questions. And Utah made headlines a couple years ago in 2024 when it was reported by Bleacher Report that Utah was there asking, potential draftees, what's your Uber rating, by the way? And and for me, it's a great question. I think you can take that in a lot of different directions, and be able to get some character thoughts on a player. But you get teams like Montreal asking,
This is great.
so you order a sandwich with cheese on it, and it comes without cheese. What do you do? Like, what's the right answer? I think Montreal also asked, would you rather play 4 years and win a Stanley Cup, or play 10 years and not win a Stanley Cup? So really forcing guys to think. The Rangers gave the guys a piece of paper with numbered 1 through 100, but not in that order, and wanted them to check off in order numbers 1 through 100. So,
wow.
Yeah, the combine. I'm sure it's good for the scouts, but let's talk about the questions and the activities.
The viral question from the Canadians this year was, if you're stranded in the Sahara Desert,
oh man,
a day's walk from water, one person has a bottle of water and one person has a baseball bat, would you kill the other person to take the water? And Tobias Treball, who's a goalie for the Youngstown Phantoms, so on his way up through the USHL, he apparently answered the question this way. One of the interviewers said, I have a wife at home. I have kids at home. Are you going to kill me to get this water? And this goalie said, yeah, your family's at home. Your family is safe. I have my whole life in front of me, and I want to play in the NHL, so I am going to kill you. He's like, I'm not going to kill your family, but I will kill you because you're in my way. That's crazy. But also probably what they want to hear.
So you kill the guy, you get his water. How long is that going to last you? A day?
Well, you're a day's walk. You're a day's walk away, so you better start walking.
Yeah. Also,
let's be honest, even in the Sahara, you could probably go more than a day without water. You could just start walking. You got to think. All right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if, as an adult, if I would have got drafted after these combine questions, because I'm not sure I would have given him a real like the cheese thing. Yeah, you send it back because you, as a business owner, as a manager, you want the customer happy. They want you to be happy. Don't worry about sending something back. They want you to be happy versus leaving and then telling all your friends what a bad experience you had. As an 18-year-old, OC would have folded my tent like the fish that I was and answered everything as polite as possible and probably given the wrong answer that they wanted to hear to everything.
Okay. Would you tell the truth if a team asked you, who are you a fan of? Who's your favorite team? Who do you want to like? Would you tell the truth? If you're like, I'm a Niners fan. I've been a Niners fan my whole life. If I'm at a draft interview and they're like, the Dallas Cowboys are asking me, who's your favorite NFL team? Am I going to say the San Francisco 49ers? Am I going to tell the Seattle Seahawks that my favorite NFL team is the San Francisco 49ers? What would you do if you were asked by, in this case, it was the New York Islanders, hey, aren't you a Rangers fan? What do you say?
I'd say, as an 18-year-old, I'd say, yeah, I'm an Islanders fan. Big fan. Love you guys. Matthew Schaefer's the best. As an adult, you've been through experiences. You're like, oh, you can see that I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. I am a diehard Utah Jazz. Utah Mammoth.
Well, apparently, a cat from the Moncton Wildcats told the Islanders that he grew up a New York Rangers fan. And the Islanders were like, oh, really? Okay.
So do they like that answer or do they not?
I don't know.
What do they want to hear?
I don't know.
It's
the Islanders also handed prospects a brick and said, give me as many ways as you can think of to use this brick in 30 seconds. What? I don't know how that helps you determine whether or not you want to draft a guy. other than just seeing how well they think on their feet potentially. But
that's what I think, Mike. OC. I think this is some borderline bullying on a lot of the outside of the Uber rating, which is a perfectly fair question, and the cheese on the sand. I think we got. It sounds like bullying to me.
Previously, like in the NFL, they've had to. Teams got so out of pocket with their questions that the league had to come in and just be like, hey.
Do you remember Des Bryant?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
Famously, Des Bryant they were trying to goad him into freaking out, basically, by making claims about his mother's employment in a quite disparaging manner. And the NFL finally had to step in and just be like, hey, you can't. That's too far. You can't do that. Like, good thing Des Bryant didn't have a brick in front of him when they asked him that question. He'd have found a use for it.
What's your first instinct with a brick? If you just got a brick, like, what's your first? Mine is to throw it.
Correct. If there's
is that wrong? Like,
I think
build strength.
So one kid came up with 8 different uses for it. Mine would be like, I could smash that window with it.
Yeah,
I could smash this. I could smash this computer with it. I would just think of like 10 different things that I could smash a brick with, because you can't build with a single brick. I guess maybe they probably have papers in there you could use as a paperweight, right?
Was it Lisa Salters the other night interviewing Wemby, and she wasn't in the picture post game?
So
she could have used a brick.
That would be the other thing. It'd be like, well, I would stand on the brick, and then you guys could measure me, and suddenly I'm 6'4".
There you go. Weights and measures.
There you go.
We just did in the first part of the day before lunch.
That's what they're looking for. Anyway, NHL Scouting Combine, Utah Mammoth not picking up at the top this year because they're a playoff team now, which is nice.
Do you remember last year at the Combine, all the stories were, Utah just took so-and-so out to dinner. Is that a sign? And then it came out, yeah, the Mammoth were taking 10 to 15 guys at a time to the dinner. It's like, oh, okay. And then Bill Armstrong drafts Caleb Denoyer, and he's like, I had Caleb over at my house. We had pizza. Like, was he just kind of, the dinner narratives. I miss that when you're not drafting 4th overall.
If I'm Caleb, I'd be mad that I got pizza at the house instead of like, a 4-course meal at a nice restaurant.
Would you? Because I think I would have. You go to somebody's house, you're like, I wonder what they're having. And you show up, it's like, oh, pizza. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
That's what I would have been.
No, man.
You show up, sometimes it's like, yeah, fancy. I don't know what fork to use.
No, I want that.
Pizza?
I want that. I like the fancy dinner.
You're going for the porterhouse.
If I ever became a free agent, like a meaningful free agent in athletics, I would cost the teams that were trying to get my services, I would cost them absurd amounts of money. I would make it known through my agent, because then you're less of a diva if your agent's the one telling you. Be like, hey, he wants a brand new pair of Nikes for every visit that he's got. He wants to go out to the nicest restaurant in the city for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. He wants the private jet sent out there. I would be obnoxious. These kids probably aren't quite in that position yet, but I'd be the worst.
I'd be happier if we just DoorDashed 5 guys.
Okay, get out of here. That's Adrian Denny in Between the Pipes, brought to you by our good friends at Aladdin Industries, and, of course, the truck with the Duck Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. All right, we have a statement from Kirby Hocutt, the Texas Tech athletic director. A lot of statements, not a lot of things being said. We'll get to it next. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. He is like a foot taller than him. Look, there's something good in the sports world about us against the world. Us versus everybody. There's value to that in sports, in professional sports, in college sports, in high school sports, in little league sports. People will try to cultivate, they'll make an artificial problem so that they can sell that to their team. They can sell that to their fan base, right? What do good teams do in college football every year? What do the favorites do? They search and they cram and they find bulletin board material wherever they can. You guys are being disrespected. You're being underappreciated. You're being overlooked. And the rest of the world is like, what are you talking about? No, they're not. They're favorites in every game. So you just make it up sometimes. Well, again, Texas Tech, Lubbock, I don't have a great context on Lubbock, Texas. They're creating very much an against the world scenario with this whole Brendan Sorsby situation. And Kirby Hocutt, the director of Texas Tech's athletic department, put out a really long statement, a page, effectively. And I don't want to read the whole thing, but the justification gymnastics are just impressive from Texas Tech. And this is one of those situations where these guys are going to lie about it until they actually believe it. And maybe they've already lied about it enough that they actually do believe it. But something that we can never fall for, okay? And I thought it was interesting when we had Jeff Schwartz on where he brought up the point, like, look, I think Utah would do this for its quarterback, or I think that Oregon would do this for its quarterback. I actually am not really convinced that that's the case. If it were like this guy filled out a NCAA bracket and put $100 on it, obviously that's kids being kids. I think that in a situation like that, you're probably defending this. And again, Utah has defended guys with DUIs. They have defended guys with sexual assault allegations. They have defended guys, and they've let that process play out. So I'm not pretending that Utah or Oregon or BYU or anyone else is above these processes, is above reproach when it comes to this stuff. There's always like, oh, how talented are you? Your talent is in direct proportion to the tolerance that a team has for your mistakes. But I have a hard time thinking that if $90,000 and whatever it was, 3,800 bets were placed by Devin Dampier, that Utah would die on that hill. That Utah would just be like, yeah, we're going to fight this out, man. He didn't do anything wrong. He went to rehab. It's all about his mental. Would they support him? Yes. Would they say, serve your time and come back and play for us? Yes. We've seen that from the local universities. We've seen that from the University of Utah. We saw, like, Utah did that with an Oregon transfer. BYU did that with Kyle Van Noy. Right? These guys get into a little bit of trouble, and they're told, all right, go serve your time. Go do what you have to do. Your community service, your whatever. You're going to earn your way back into our circle of trust, and then we're going to let you play. That's the appropriate way to go about this. Brendan Sorsby spending 30 days in a country club rehab facility for something like gambling is not that. It just isn't. Kirby Hocutt's statement, here's part of it. Watch the reaction to Monday's court ruling with great respect for my colleagues across college athletics. Many of them are people I admire. But I also owe it to Texas Tech and, frankly, to the truth to offer the few facts that seem to be getting lost in the noise. Brandon Sorsby has not played a single down of football as a Red Raider. He will miss the first 2 games of the 2026 seasons under the court's ruling. What happens after that will depend in no small part on how his recovery continues to progress. We're taking one day at a time as he is, deeply committed to his progress and well-being. We're not operating on blind faith. We're operating on comprehensive clinical and compliance structure that we committed to before the court ruled in Brendan's lawsuit against the NCAA, and that Brendan committed to as a condition of his return to our football program. Texas Tech is not party to Brendan's lawsuit. We did not file it. We did not fund it. A young man in treatment for a clinically diagnosed addiction exercised his legal right to seek remedy in court, and a judge agreed with him. Our role has been to support his recovery, not to engineer his eligibility. Stop it. While I do not dispute that the technical truth of this, like, of course, Texas Tech is not the ones who had to go through these machinations. Where does Brendan Sorsby's money come from? Where does his ability to pay for an attorney?
Technically not Texas Tech either, OC.
But, correct. That's why the loopholes of this system allow for you to type this out if you're an athletic director making a couple million a year, whatever his salary is, with a straight face, because technically you're not lying about any of it. Technically. But we all know what this is. And we all know what it is when it's BYU doing it, or when it's Utah doing it, or when it's Michigan doing it. We all know what it is. Okay? The thinly veiled technicalities involved in a statement like this. Again, Texas Tech, every time you do this, this is what you're doing. Every time your coach is just like, well, we might not play him. We got to see how his recovery process is going. Do we really believe? Does anybody on the planet truly believe that Brendan Sorsby is sitting in a dark room somewhere suffering through the horrors of his gambling addiction. And if he gets over that, then maybe, just maybe, he can play football again.
Jeff nailed it on this because, yes, there are many addictions when it comes to substance abuse, alcohol, certainly, where that is a day-to-day, you can't function normally without that, right? And that is a day-to-day struggle. There are other addictions that, while also bad, also vices, like gambling, where you can absolutely function normally. Like, this is not what they're characterizing it to be. All due respect for anyone who's gone through gambling addiction, who's going through it right now and might be listening to this. I'm not disparaging that at all. I'm just saying it's not what they're characterizing it.
I want to be clear that there's arguments against the integrity of games that Brendan Sorsby is playing in because he's the gambling guy. That's not what I'm worried about at all. I want to make that clear. I don't think Brendan Sorsby is going to be playing for Texas Tech this year and throwing games, or that betting will be irregular on games, although you want to make a great way. If you're an outside influence and you want to cause some serious problems for Texas Tech, start displaying irregular gambling activity on Texas Tech games and watch what happens. That's an aside that we don't need to get into. That's vigilante law. That's vigilante justice, I should say. That's people taking the matter into their own hands. The reason why this is problematic, and the reason why Kirby Hocutt, your statement is BS, because here's another part of the statement. I have two sons, including one who recently graduated from Texas Tech and played football. Throughout this process, I've kept asking myself, how would I approach the situation if this were my own son? Keep that energy and answer this question for me, Kirby Hocutt. If your son willingly, deliberately disobeyed rules that are clear to every single person who has ever been around college sports, if they broke those rules repeatedly, aggressively, and in this case, very, very publicly, would you want that person, your son, to serve a consequence? Would you want them to suffer a consequence? Would you want them to have to learn the hard lesson to prepare that 21, 22, 19, whatever year old for life in the future? When you break the rules or you break the law, there are going to be consequences. Would you want your son or your daughter to learn from this process, regardless of how good they are at what they do? Would you want them to have to? It's just like, if we're going to approach this from the addiction side of things, how many times have we seen where a family reaches its breaking point, right? You have to go to rehab if you want us to continue to support you. You got to do it. You got to go to rehab. I need you to go to rehab. I need you to commit to getting yourself better. Or I'm cutting you off financially. You can't live in my house anymore, whatever. Those are consequences. And nobody wants to glamorize or glorify or, for that matter, diminish if this is a real addiction for him. Sure, it's an instant addiction. He's addicted to gambling, right? Maybe it gripped his life. Maybe it took control of him. It sounds like he lost about $90,000. $90,000 for a millionaire, a multimillionaire who's getting every meal and his housing paid for in college is not that big of a deal, right? So it's not like it's exactly crippling Brendan Sorsby. I've got to be sensitive here. I don't want to diminish his mental health crisis that's happening. But even if your son or daughter, there is a mental health element to them breaking the rules or breaking the law, don't you want there to be a consequence so that they have to learn? Because when you remove consequences, I've got 7, 4, 2. That's my children's age. I have already learned this the hard way, okay, as a parent. If I don't follow through on consequences, if I tell my kids, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, or this is going to happen, and then I don't follow through, guess what? The behavior continues. The bad behavior, the harmful behavior, the detrimental behavior continue. Consequences are built in for a reason. You are removing them. You're in support of this judge removing them. You, as the athletic director of Texas Tech, are making sure there are no consequences in front of him because the legal system has washed your hands of it. Because his ability to pay his own attorneys has washed your hands of it, Kirby Hocutt. So don't give me this. Well, I think about what would I do if it were my sons? Well, if you're a good dad, what you would do is you'd tell your sons, man, you broke the cardinal sin rule of college football. You're going to have to sit out more than 2 games. Maybe you don't want it to be the whole season. Fine. Hey, son, you're going to have to sit out that Abilene Christian game. Give me a break. Like, you are undermining, now with your own words here, the legitimacy of your own athletic department by throwing out stuff like this. You sound like an idiot. You look like an idiot. Your coach looks like an idiot. I would respect it a heck of a lot more if Texas Tech and Joey McGuire just said, hey, you know what? I don't know if it's the call that I would have made, but the legal system says he can play. So he can play. Giving me this like, oh, yeah, we're really concerned about his mental health. He might not actually be ready to play by week 3 because this recovery process is a lot tougher than you guys think. Shut up. I have 2 sons, including one that just played college football. I would like to look at this situation. How would I handle with my own sons? And I decided that what I would want to do is also have no consequences for my kids. Guess whose kids are this way? Deion Sanders' kids. Remember how his son, Shiloh, is just like a big pain in the ass for everyone who's ever been around him? And instead of real consequences being put in front of him, there's just always this like snowplow in front. Oh, you've buried yourself in debt. Just go. You're going to declare bankruptcy here. Oh, you've assaulted a referee at a high school game. We're going to go through the legal process to get you out of this. Like, you're not going to miss any games because of it. It's crazy.
What's lost in all this is I respect the sentiment of being there as a football coach if you're Joey McGuire, as a school and a football program if you're the AD, Kirby Hocutt. I respect this sentiment of like, we're going to be there for him as a person, but you can be there for him while also enforcing these consequences, right? While also saying, like, you can say, you are absolutely welcome to be a student in our university, and you are welcome to be around the football team. Yeah. You are welcome to have this support system. You are not welcome to play on the football team. You can do all that you can exercise that entire and follow through on that entire sentiment that Joey McGuire did at a Q&A today at a luncheon, and what Kirby Hocutt says in this statement here, while also enforcing that, hey, like, we can't have you play, but you can do everything else. That's how you ought to, in my mind, that's how you ought to support someone who you believe is going through a really tough thing, and you don't want to completely cut them off, because that you shouldn't completely cut people off.
And I want to make it clear that gambling for me is kind of the lesser of a lot of evils that we have tolerated in college football, as I expressed yesterday. I think that you should serve consequences when you are academically cheating. I think you should serve consequences. You should suffer them when you're accused of, or more importantly, maybe not accused of, because the legal system has to play itself out, but when you are involved with domestic violence, violence against women, sexual assault, that kind of thing, the consequences should be far more severe than they ever are, right? And this is an extension of that permissive culture that we have around great athletes. And college football is this ultimate moneymaker now. So it's not just great athletes, it's moneymakers in any situation. Brendan Sorsby is a cash cow right now for Texas Tech, because even though they're paying him handsomely, that stadium's going to be full every week because people think that they are going to win. And if they make it to a conference championship game and they make it to a college football playoff game, that's return on investment tenfold. But you are undermining your athletic department, Texas Tech, by just don't make the statement. You just don't give me the this is about mental health and this is about the recovery of a member of our community. No, it isn't. You're lying. And if you're saying that stuff to yourself in the mirror, you're lying to yourself. You can't fool us. We'll close out the show next. Little crosstalk. Some tickets to give away. In this moment, Hollywood Undead coming to the complex. We'll have a trivia question for you in 3 minutes on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Eight seven seven 353 0700. Brandon Bussey became the first NHL player since what year to have a first playoff start and a first playoff win in the Stanley Cup final? When is the last time that happened? Hint, it's before they were painting the goalie masks. 877-353-0700 for a pair of tickets to In This Moment in Hollywood Undead at the Complex. Crosstalk brought to you by Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off, 10 windows or more. Get on the schedule right now. Get those windows in right before the hot portion of summer. Make your house a little bit more energy efficient. Save on your cooling bill. Spence Checketts in the drive coming up next. Hey, Spence.
What's up, Sean? How are you?
Great. I'm doing awesome. Had an amazing Game 4 of the Stanley Cup final last night.
Mm-hmm.
Got a really interesting Game 4 of the NBA Finals coming up tonight. Looking forward to that. I tried to not spend too much time on the show today talking about the Brendan Sorsby situation because we're kind of in this, like, it is what it is now. Nothing's going to happen. Texas Tech has made it pretty clear they're not going to be the ones to, like, punish Brendan Sorsby because legally they don't have to.
Yeah.
And their athletic director put out a statement. Their coach is talking. Their big-name booster, Cody Campbell, is defending this all the way to the mats. So it is what it is, and Brendan Sorsby's going to play this fall.
Yeah, I think you guys did a really good job. I was listening on my way in to kind of unpack all the angles here. Because, look, it's such a weird job for us when things like this happen because you kind of have to learn about things you're not all that familiar with to speak about it responsibly. And addiction is a really interesting topic with a lot of different layers and a lot of different potential addictions that adversely affect your life. I mean, there's the obvious ones that are drugs and alcohol because they've been around forever. And there have been adverse, situations that affect people for decades and decades and decades and decades. And then in the modern age, you bring in things like your phone and social media, and we know a lot about food addiction. I mean, ultimately, whatever that thing is for you, the bottom line is you're trying to escape something. That's what it is, and when it comes to addiction and mental health, my understanding is it's your mind telling you that your body needs something, that it's poisoned. Like your mind's telling you your body actually needs something and your body is allergic to what your mind is telling you to take. That's the insanity piece, okay? You think you need alcohol. In reality, it's poison. You think you need drugs. In reality, you are drugging yourself, poisoning yourself. So where on the scale of this does gambling fit in? And so over the past 48 hours, I've been texting with an addiction specialist who I've known for a long, long time, just to try to understand more about what the medical community believes about gambling and how it fits on the scope of drugs and alcohol. And the fact of the matter is, with our ability now to measure brain waves and actually identify what dopamine hits are and how you get them, we know how your brain reacts when you win a bet. And it is similar to what it's like when you put a needle in your arm. Is that a tough thing for people to accept? I don't know, because the drugs and alcohol portion of addiction is something that we're all very aware of because it's been part of society. There are chances that if you're listening to the show, you may have been affected by it, or a friend or family member of yours has been affected by it. But it's more apparent. Like, you don't have to say a name, Sean, but have you ever had a friend or a family member that has gotten loose with drugs or alcohol?
Yes.
My guess is you could sense it, you could see it, whether it was on his face, whether it was as a result of a relationship that was frayed, right? I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
There's always something that kind of tips people off.
Right. You see a friend you haven't seen for a few months, and you're like, dude, are you good? Shows up and is not himself, and whatever that is. Chances are we've all had that experience where a friend or a family member is getting loose. We get a call like somebody's got to get a hold of him, grab him by the collar and be like, we need you to get better. You were talking about this earlier. When it comes to gambling, you don't see it unless it's something as obvious as like you're going to lose your house or you're going to lose your marriage or you can't afford to live. And the fact of the matter is, the data we have, about 3 to 5% of people that gamble consistently end up in a place where they're facing financial ruin. That's a very small portion of the people that place bets, because now that it's legal everywhere, I don't know about you, but I don't know how many of my friends bet on sports, but I feel like a lot of them do. We text about it. I say all the time, stay away from it because it's such a slippery slope, but it's easy to say that. It's another thing to be able to pull up a prediction market on your phone and be like, I got $20 on the Knicks tonight.
Yeah.
But if you have $20 on the Knicks tonight and you don't win it, you're going to be able to eat the next day. It's when you allow it to get to the point where you get paid and you go straight to your phone and transfer all the money from your paycheck to your sportsbook account and then try to double down and try to chase your losses. And next thing you know, you're placing $10,000 on whether or not Landry Shamit's going to hit a 3 in the third quarter. Then you're in trouble.
Which, by the way, the prediction markets, they're starting to regulate and disallow. Sounds like they're going to start disallowing some of those prop type things.
Yeah.
Because that does feed exactly what we were talking about.
Right.
What's good, to bring it back to the Texas Tech context, what's good about this story, and there's not a lot of good things about this story, is even though there were thousands of bets placed by Brandon Sorsby, and I'm sure that qualifies as an addictive pattern of behavior and things like that, sounds like he was gambling. He gambled about $90,000. He's a millionaire. Now, $90,000 is a lot of money, but if you're a millionaire a couple times over, it's probably pretty manageable when your housing is paid for, when your school is paid for, when most of your food is paid for.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was crippling himself financially as far as we know on these apps. Now, if he was gambling that much on the apps, who knows if he also had a bookie, that there's more action coming. There's no dispute, at least on this show, that Brendan Sorsby probably did indeed need treatment for a gambling addiction and probably still needs that to be ongoing. That's, quite frankly, none of my business. When you meet someone or you know someone who maybe their addiction comes to light because their drug use becomes criminally problematic or their alcohol becomes criminally problematic, right? Where then they're arrested or something like that. The argument, the assertion is never, oh, well, as long as we get them treatment, the other consequences don't matter here. That's where this is unique for Texas Tech, and that's where this is unique for Brendan Sorsby, and that's where, quite frankly, it's stupid. Because while you can debate whether or not his gambling was criminal, which, according to the letter of a lot of gambling laws, it was. Mm-hmm. If he has material information that is not public knowledge and he is using that to help him gamble, that is prosecutable. I don't want the kid to go to jail. I just want him to have to follow the rules that everyone else, since the beginning of time in college sports, have had to follow. Yep. And, by the way, pro athletes have had to follow. And pro athletes, when they're found running afoul of, what happens to them, Spence? Season-long suspension, lifetime suspension, banned from the Hall of Fame. I mean, we take it seriously in professional sports. We're not going to take it seriously in college sports. We're not going to make this kid, like, get better, Brendan Sorsby. I want what's best for you in your life. I also want you to pay the consequences for your illegal actions under the rules of the agreements that you made. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, and this judge decided that they were, and that is disingenuous. It's not an attempt to get this kid better. It's an attempt to let him play football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. I mean, Pete Rose literally had to die to be forgiven by Major League Baseball.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, they didn't even consider any positive option until he was literally not breathing anymore.
And guess what? Pete Rose, under the modern day MMP, the modern day whatever, he probably was a gambling addict.
Oh, for sure. He was a degenerate gambler. I mean, in the book about him, he used to love spring training because after practice, he was in proximity from the dog track and the horse track. He would leave practice and go place a bunch of bets. And Rick Riley wrote a story once on Pete Rose where he went to visit him at his house, and he walked in, and Pete Rose was married to a very lovely, beautiful woman. She went over to try to give Pete a hug, and he pushed her away to go check hockey scores. And Rick's like, he must really love hockey because nobody knew just how deep the whole thing went. But let me offer this. Again, it's such an interesting, layered, nuanced conversation. And I certainly am not a psychologist or a doctor. But this is from an addiction specialist. It's all about, because I asked him, I said, look, how does gambling addiction treatment compare to that of drugs and alcohol? And how does it compare in the scope of trying to function day to day? And he says it's similar. You know, to treat it, you identify key triggers, key beliefs that lead them to the action of gambling, going deeper, trying to understand their childhood insecurities, childhood trauma, connects with the world. And then bottom line, the definition of any addiction is this: when people have the behaviors that are hurting their lives and having negative consequences, but either they keep doing it or they can't stop. And that's the real definition of addiction, and that fits for gambling or substances or sex, etc. So look, it's
wait. Will you rewind? Like, go back to that. They keep doing it despite
the bottom line. Yeah, the bottom line definition of addiction is when people have the behaviors that are hurting their lives and having negative consequences, but either they keep doing it or they can't stop. And that's the real definition of addiction. And it fits for gambling, it fits for substances, and it fits for sex and phone and social media and everything else.
Well, then we're okay, because Brendan Sorsby, it didn't hurt his life. He has no negative consequences, and so he's not addicted. You just fixed it. Good job, Judge.
But ultimately, I want to underscore one thing that you said that is really, really important here. And that's what makes what has happened with Brendan Sorsby, quite frankly, shocking, misguided, and the wrong decision on all levels. And I'll bottom line this. My dear 5'2" LDS mother, who is a who is a therapist herself, and she works with LDS Family Services in the Northeast, has so many tremendous sayings. But one of her most on-point sayings that she has used to me often is, the bottom line is this: consequences are a bitch. That comes from my 5'2" Mormon LDS mother, okay? So, like, we can get into the debate about what is an addiction. We can get into a debate as far as what we need to do to help somebody who cannot stop something that is harming himself or others. What should not be debatable is the consequences that come down as a result of your life choices and your actions. You were talking about it in the scope of you being a father. And I've experienced it in my own life. Like, okay, feel bad for you. You're going through something, but guess what? You did something that really was wrong. Now you got to go face the consequences. Go through it, get better, get your life back. That's part of the journey of life.
And I want to be clear. I want that for Brendan Sorsby.
I understand.
I hope he never places another bet. If it's detrimental for him and it was hurting him, I hope he never places another bet. But there's no reason that he should be given the special treatment that nobody else in the history of college sports has been given. There is no reason for that.
And if you take away consequences, you enable the behavior and underscore that that's okay.
And maybe more importantly, you now are giving a green light to virtually every behavior that any college athlete can engage in that is detrimental to themselves or others. They can now apparently just call this exact judge and say, will you reinstate my eligibility because missing my college basketball season because of, those TVs I stole, that's detrimental to my mental health.
Right.
Parker Kingston, is he calling and saying like, hey, this rape charge that I'm facing and now I can't play, detrimental to my mental health. Will you force BYU to let me play?
It's the slipperiest of slopes.
It's disgusting.
Because the other thing you're and I know you got to go, but the message you're sending is hire the right attorney, go judge shopping, find the right judge in the right district, and just go file there.
Yeah. And
there are hundreds and hundreds of judges across the country. So if your boy in Lubbock isn't going to get you what you want, maybe the guy in Boulder will. And all of these powerful attorneys have these networks of judges that they've known for years. So they call their boy that they went to law school with, who's now a judge in North Carolina, is like, hey, I'm going to bring my guy there. And, oh, by the way, your boat looks old. Maybe you need a little help getting a new boat, right? Wink, wink. And then, boom, a deal is made and the kid's off the hook and he's allowed to play. It's a dangerous precedent. I don't mean to sound hyperbolic, but I told you when I saw Thamel's tweet, I'm like, that's not real. And I'm still stunned.
The consequences are going to be far-reaching for college football. Not so much for Brendan Sorsby, it doesn't seem. Stay tuned for the drive. It's going to be great today. Spence has been talking to actual addiction therapists because, that's the kind of research I should probably have been doing. It's the Sean O'Connell Show wrapping up. We'll do it again tomorrow on ESPN 700 and 92.